Hi, and welcome to Under Our Skin podcast.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Hey, welcome to Under Our Skin podcast. We're here today with Sam Fiorino in his shop in White Plains, Addicted to Ink.
How you doing, guys?
Hey, and we're gonna get right into it. So, Sam, where are you from originally? You're from around this area?
So I grew up here pretty much in Westchester County, New York, but we didn't move here till I was 8 years old. So for the first 8 years of my life, I was born in Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans. I lived there till I was about 6, moved to California for 2 years. Then we decided to move to New York pretty much because my family was so poor. We just needed to find relatives to live with. So that was kind of like our migration.
I gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're poor, this is not the area to move to normally.
No, but if you've got a grandfather who owns a house that you
Sure.
can kind of move into the apartment upstairs, that works.
Sure. So, all right. So you spent your young formative years in bouncing around a little bit, but you're.
I say it's essentially that I grew up in New York because that's,
Yeah, because when you're 8 years old, that's when you're starting to get interested in things. And,
yeah. I think that
kind of stuff.
Forming into an adult, I was exposed more to, this New York, Westchester County environment than anything else. So
Yeah. That's cool. And you went to high school here?
yeah, went to Mamaroneck High School. Graduated there in 1998. Did a lot of skateboarding and bike riding, and just hung out with the punk rockers, and was a little bit of a sci-fi nerd when it wasn't cool to be a nerd.
Yeah. Hey, I can identify. I was a kid. I played Dungeons and Dragons, and no one thought I was cool for it then, but now.
Oh God, you want to know So the nerdy kids would be playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I'd go over and be like, "Yo, can you guys teach me how to play?" And they'd be like, "No, get lost." So I was even nerdier than the Dungeons and Dragons kids. It was great. It's fine though, because those kids are all, losers now. Anyway,
it's funny how culture has changed so much. That stuff that was not as socially cool back then.
Oh yeah,
it's cool now. I mean,
I say it all the time. When I was in middle school, I would stay home on Friday nights and watch Star Wars by myself instead of go out and try to, hang out with chicks or drink Zimas or whatever the fuck you did when you were in middle school in 1993. I was an outcast for it, but nowadays, because of the internet and stuff, you can find any little niche. You like to dress up like an Ewok and have sex in Dunkin' Donut bathrooms. You can do it nowadays. Seriously, there's a group for everybody nowadays, and
absolutely, because
the internet wasn't prevalent back then. I didn't find people who I could relate to, and just kind of hung out by myself a lot when I was younger.
I hear you. And so you were into skating and punk rock and
I did a lot of skateboarding, BMX, punk rock stuff, and art and comic books when I was younger. My brother was really into comic books, and he's a phenomenal artist. He's a great artist, and so I kind of, I just wanted to do whatever my brother could do. And
he's an older brother?
What's that?
Older brother?
Oh yeah, he's 5 years older than me.
Okay.
So he's 44 now. Yeah. So I'd want to do whatever he did, and started drawing comics like he did, and just got more and more into art through comic books mostly, and it kind of just snowballed from there, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. I feel like at that time and before that time, those kind of things were in the same wheelhouse as tattooing, punk rock and hardcore and skating and.
Yeah, I think that I was
they
exposed to tattoos, I think, before your general public did, because I was getting tattooed before, the whole TV boom, before, like Miami Ink and, Kat Von D and all that stuff. So I was getting tattooed earlier when it was, I got my first tattoo when I was 18. I wasn't like a badass and got tattooed when I was 14 and, whatever. Yeah. But getting tattooed when you're 18 in 1998 was very different than getting tattooed when you're 18 and nowadays. Nowadays, back then it was maybe 3 or 4 shops in the whole county, and you had to know somebody who knew the owner. It wasn't easy.
Right.
And then you went in there and you kind of were a little bit scared. It felt like you really shouldn't be doing this. And now, it's like, now kids come in and they kind of like, they're so entitled to get their fucking tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like, I won't look down on them or anything because they're kids and they don't really know any different. They don't know how it was.
Right.
And, they pay my bills. So,
Yeah.
But it's different, very different.
Yeah, very different time. I mean, I'm also from from the area from Westchester, and I got my first tattoo in Mount Kisco in a guy's shop, which was his garage. But I mean, it's just a guy. I don't want to say the name because last I heard he owns a shop in Connecticut in Danbury. So
okay.
And he was terrible, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus.
There were not very many good tattooers back then. Don't worry about it.
No, I mean there wasn't many shops in the area,
Yeah.
and there wasn't anyone good. Like anyone that whose work,
Oh, well,
this time
tattooing's
later, you could say.
changed so much since then. You can, beat it over the head, but it's like the people that are exposed to it, the talent of the people who are doing it. 25 years ago, there weren't art school kids getting into tattooing. It was, like it was the whole kind of biker gang sort of vibe, and
Yeah.
you went in and you wanted one thing and you got something different because the guy couldn't do it or whatever. So, we're in some sort of a golden age in tattooing right now for sure because of the different types of tattooing that you can get, the different skill levels, and just way more to choose from for sure.
That's for sure. I mean, there's from what people like in our parents' generation, in my parents' generation, thought of tattooing when you thought of, I guess primarily, prisoners and bikers and
right.
And,
yeah.
And maybe Navy guys who would get stuff at different ports.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And
it was a special kind of person, not special, but
yeah,
like it was on the fringe for sure. It was like
for sure. A heart, a dagger through a heart.
Yeah,
says
it was,
mom
it
and
was
stuff
tough
like
guy
that.
stuff. You didn't really, I remember the first guy that I saw that was heavily tattooed. I must have been like 7 or 8 years old when we were living in California, and just walking down the street was this dude, like this fucking Harley dude with fucking biker tats all over his arms, and he just had this like swag when he was walking. I was like, man, that guy's so fucking tough. Holy shit, look at his tattoos. It was like seeing an alien. You know what I mean? But like nowadays, you see people with tattoos, you're just like, oh, there's another person with tattoos.
And not just with tattoos, but you see people with sleeves and full neck pieces, back pieces, all stuff. I mean, stuff that even 7 or 8 years ago was really kind of almost taboo still.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, so this past weekend was 4th of July. Me and my family, so I took my kid and we went with all the cousins and stuff to Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. So we're walking around the amusement park, and my brother he's just like, man, everybody has tattoos. And I'm like, yep. He's like, and most of them are pretty bad. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's whatever. If they like them, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
If they like them, it's cool.
Yeah, if they like them, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's probably something that hasn't changed that much. The amount of people getting tattoos has certainly changed, but the fact that most people are getting bad tattoos probably hasn't changed that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely more good tattoos out nowadays, but I think that it's just
just more in general.
Yeah, it's just like an ignorance, if I'm gonna say get Chinese food, I'm just gonna go to the guy down the street because he's the closest, right? I'm not gonna like do my research and find out who the fuck makes the best goddamn Chinese. I'm just gonna like, oh, this dirty hole in the wall place is right down the street. I'm gonna do that.
Right. Right.
What do I know? I mean, I don't know anything about that stuff. So, so like that directly compares to people who are getting tattooed. They just don't know what a good tattoo is, or
right. Yeah. I'm a big believer in that, and from my job, which is as an electrician, in construction in general, I'm a believer that because I sometimes see people that are like, wow, this job looks really great, and blah blah, and I look at it, I'm like, boy, that looks like total shit. And I used to just think, these guys are hacks. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But now I think, these guys maybe they don't really know what a good job should look like, and maybe they can't extrapolate it themselves. Maybe they can't. So maybe they have to see that first, or have someone show them. I'm lucky when I got into it. The guy I learned from was really good. He was a really great illustrator. So that was lucky for me. So
Right, so you were ahead of the
I
curve on
learned
that,
what
yeah.
good was early on. But you know, and I see the same thing in tattoos, that people just don't. If people don't follow on Instagram and this and that, they don't see the really such an incredibly wide ranging art field
Yeah, for sure.
of stuff that people are
Sure.
able to do.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, just maybe want to kind of get similar stuff to their social crew or whatever, like so that their friends are getting black and gray, religious stuff. So that's that's what they're exposed to, and that's what they kind of think are cool tattoos, and they'll get that. I've been guilty of that when I was younger. Growing up, my friends and I started getting tattooed around the same time, and they would want to get like sort of those the traditional sailor tattoos. That's what you got when you were a hardcore kid in the 90s.
Sure.
And so that's the stuff I wanted to get. But I also really was like, oh, can we do this a little more like cartoony? And then I bring it to the artist, and he'd just be like, this is what you're getting. Like, all right, cool. I just want to get tattooed. So and so nowadays it's again, you have more of those options, so you can do your research to be like, this is a specific style that I want to get tattooed in, and there's options. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that the way to go is to find the person whose style most emulates what you want to get for that piece, at least.
oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
And then because it's so hard to, especially for people that are not artists, not artistic, to translate that idea, what they're seeing in their head,
Yeah.
to you as a tattooer. And I feel like, well, if the stuff that you do is kind of like what I'm imagining, then even if we don't we don't see it the same way, I'm still gonna hopefully like what you come up with, because it's in the same
Sure, yeah. I
same
mean,
idea, as opposed to people that just go to anyone and say,
well, that's it.
hey, I just
So-
want this, that, something you've never done.
Oh yeah.
And,
So if you're going to an artist that they have a definitive way of doing things, then you can trust that it's going to come out sort of similar to what they've done before, and then that, okay, great. Like I've seen this guy do, animals in top hats before, so I know that it's going to come out the way it has before, and so I can trust that it's going to be a result that I want. Whereas if you go to a guy who's doing, again, like praying hands all day, and you're just like, oh, hey, I want to get this penguin in a top hat or whatever, dressed as some fancy guy. You don't know what the result's going to be necessarily, because you have a vision of it being a certain way. It doesn't necessarily mean that person can see what's in your brain. So I used to, when I was starting out and I didn't really know how to talk to people as well about this, I would be like, I can't really like see what's in your brain. You got to help me out. Can you show me pictures of tattoos that you like, or ideas? So that helps. Like it's a visual medium. So if you have visual references to
Sure.
show, it definitely helps.
Sure. I was just thinking when you were saying about, we were talking before, and you said you don't watch Ink Master, but I despite the fact that I watch it and I enjoy it to some degree,
Sure.
I think it's weird. I think the premise of it is flawed from the beginning, because realistically, no tattoo artist is going to be awesome at everything.
Right.
I mean,
there's some that I've seen. I mean, I think that I've had conversations with a lot of tattooers. I think it's like the sort of consensus is like, be able to do everything, but be really good at one or two things. I've got a lot of friends who I think, well, I mean, so, for instance, Josh Payne, I think that he's like a really good example of someone who can kind of do everything like really pretty good. But I don't think that there's like any one specific thing that he's like just shines at. Like everything he does is really good. So like maybe he is the perfect ink master.
Like all around.
And then exactly. But then you got like Kelly, Kelly Doty. She's like, I've seen her do phenomenal things in all type of tattooing. Maybe not like in traditional or neo-trad. Maybe maybe her brain doesn't work that way. But realism, black and gray, new school. This is all like she can do so many things, not just like sort of cute, morbid, new schooly stuff. So
I can understand. I mean, I think, in my opinion, I certainly think people can be solid in multiple styles. But I mean,
you're not getting your best work if you're going that broad.
Right,
No, I understand.
Like
Like
the best thing, and the art of tattooing encompasses so much different stuff that,
sure, yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't go to someone in maybe in a more traditionally accepted art form, you wouldn't go to Dolly and say, "Hey, can you
Yeah, right.
can you paint me a bowl of fruit on a table?" It might be good, but it's not going to be his thing,
Right.
you know?
But that's so you're going to Dolly for that. Like you go to Dolly and you're expecting melting clocks and shit like that. But
Right.
so like you go to I don't know whoever that does whatever, and like that's again there's these tattooers who do like day in and day out the same kind of stuff because that's really what they're good at, and people really love that, and they're busy enough to do just that. But if you're not busy enough doing just that, then you've got to be versatile.
Well,
you know?
Sure.
And then there's I mean, I can say personally, like, yeah, I mean, color new school is what I'm best at, but I like doing other stuff. I like doing illustrative stuff. I like doing a neo-trad tattoo here and there, a little bit of black and gray realism, because I like, a lot of my life is just trying to find balance. And so balancing out that makes me, if I had to do color new school every day, I would just be so tired of it. It's happened to me before. And so finding a little bit of that balance, even doing walk-ins here and there, it's awesome because I don't, it makes me appreciate when I do get to do cool, fun shit.
Yeah.
But also it's just like, yeah, let's fucking bang out this walk-in real quick. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's keeps you sharp.
That's interesting because I think as someone from the outside kind of looking in, when people see an artist, like, I mean, your color new school is what you're basically known for. And we think that's what he does and that's what he wants to do. I'm sure there are artists that only want to do their style and only, don't want to do other stuff. But it's interesting to think that, Sam Fiorino for cool new school color stuff, that style and the bold colors. And it's interesting to hear you say, hey, I like doing other stuff too, and I don't want to do that all the time. And that's
yeah. I mean, it's definitely my preference. You know what I mean? But
well,
I'm not gonna
you
frown
you don't
on.
want to do it 100%.
No.
So
There's no way. I would just. It's draining. I mean, it is exhausting. Like people think because you do it every day, like like when you're doing something like that, it's still you want to make it the best tattoo you can. So you're going in there and you're spending 2, 3, 4 hours on the drawing, because that's what you excel at, and that's what people, the pressure's there. If I do like a black and gray realism, whatever, and it's not like the best, it's not up to par with, a certain level that people expect. It's like, so what? Like, he doesn't do that all the time.
Right. That's not
the pressure's
thing,
off when you do stuff like that.
That's
so
not his thing. So it doesn't
nice.
have to be.
Yeah. And, it's a lot, there's a lot less kind of legwork, and it's a lot less like, I say it all the time where I'm like, I'm doing a, whatever today. I'm doing a, I don't know, what do I do when I'm doing some Roman numerals on some guy's collarbone. Like, I don't have to think about it. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and I'm going to bitch and moan because, like, they're going to make me change the stencil 30 times, and it's just not the right size, or, whatever. Can I see it in 5 different other fonts than we've already put the same, or whatever. But so I'll definitely bitch and moan about walk-ins, but at the same time, it's just like, it's shooting fish in the barrel. It's like, I don't have to spend 5 hours thinking about it and then another 3 hours drawing it. And yeah.
When you do stuff that's more out of your wheelhouse, that's not new school stuff, is that mostly walk-ins? I mean, do you have people that actually come specifically to you that want something different?
Yeah, I mean, just in the tattoo business, in the tattoo industry, I'm sure everybody kind of like, when you've kind of put down roots in an area or been tattooing somewhere a while, you become their guy. Like you become. It's like people always. I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, tattooers are like barbers. Once you find your guy, that's your guy. You know what I mean? Yeah, like. This one client I just tattoo Bible scripture and like clouds and rays on him. That's like all I do, and I've tattooed him a handful of times. He won't go to anybody else, and I don't necessarily like doing the shit, but I like the guy, and it's a paycheck, and it's like whatever, like I just don't see why people bitch and moan about having to do stuff like that once in a while. It's just like, you're a fucking tattooer. You're not like curing cancer. Just fucking do it, man. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, it's a couple hours out of your day, and you're getting paid for it. It's still a job.
I've heard from tattooers that really runs the gamut at some people are much more humble about it. They're like, hey, this is my job, and whatever the person wants to do, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try to do my best. And some people that are, it's not that they're not humble about it, but some people that are much more, this is what I want to do, and if someone doesn't want to do this, they're not coming to me. And
yeah, I mean, I think that some people have maybe like the luxury to do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're busy enough in the thing that you're doing, again, it's like I'm not really that booked. You know, I'm booked maybe like a month or so. So like, if somebody comes to me or emails me and they say, oh, you know, I want a black and gray rose with you know, like a banner on the bottom, I'm not going to be like, yo, I don't do that. It's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know, I find a rose on the internet, I trace it, I do it. Like it, for me, stuff like that, to have 1 or 2 tattoos like that during the week is awesome because it just frees me up and I don't have to draw for 4 hours the night before. I can, you know, spend some time with my kid or wife or, you know, go for a bike ride or do whatever, you know. It's not, you know, that's that kind of balance, you know, and I'm fine with that, you know.
I hear you. No, I hear you. So speaking of your kid and your wife, let's get back to your life for a second.
Sure, yeah.
It's always easy to talk about that transition. To talking
Tattooing
about
is my
tattoos.
life. There's nothing else. No,
But,
definitely not.
All right, so you're here. So you graduated in '98 from Amerenik.
Yeah.
What was your next move? You said you're a sci-fi guy. You were into skating, into punk rock, and hardcore.
Yeah.
But were you were into art by then already?
Yeah. So you know, I was in high school. Definitely spent the most time in the graphic design class. I had an awesome teacher, Mr. Tannenbaum, who's I don't want to say he was like a good influence because he's just like a crazy dude, but it made me appreciate like creating stuff. You know, like we used to silk screen T-shirts. I mean,
Oh, cool.
You know, like the whole punk rock thing back in
Sure,
the day.
sure.
Like nowadays, the kids probably just find a website and get it done that way. But like we had to make our own T-shirts, our own stickers, our own buttons. And I love like making stuff. It just made me appreciate making stuff, making paintings, and it was very fulfilling. So from that, you know, after high school, I tried to get into School of Visual Arts in Manhattan for animation. However, they only accept like 20. Back in the day, this is 1997, 98. They only accepted a certain number of students for the animation program. And so I went there with my portfolio, and you know, the guy who reviewed the portfolio was like, "Well, listen, you know, like there's only 20 spots for animation. I can't get you into that program. We'd love to have you here at School of Visual Arts. You know, you're definitely like a talented artist. So we can accept you as a visual arts student. However, you're not going to get into the animation program." And so I you know, mulled it over a bit, and I was like, I can't afford to go here. Just for visual arts, I can go to like, you know, so I can go somewhere else and pay a lot less money and study visual arts. So that was kind of like, you know, maybe I should have tried a little harder or whatever. You know, when you're 18, you don't want to try too hard at anything.
Yeah, sure.
So I ended up going to Stony Brook, University of Stony Brook, in Long Island. Yep, for 1 semester, and then I stopped going. I didn't like it. I don't know whether or not it was because I was away from. Actually, I don't think it was because I was away from home or anything like that. I'm definitely not like a mama's boy or anything like that. But it was just a very weird environment. It was hard to make friends there. I'm a very open-minded person, and I have no hate towards anybody. But it was heavily an Asian population. This was like 60% Asian, and most of the people who went there lived in Queens. So on the weekends, everybody would go home for the weekend, and it was a ghost town. So all my suite mates were Asian, lived, and that wasn't a problem. I got along with them. It had nothing to do with them being Asian. It just had to do with the fact that they only hung out with other Asian kids and went back to Queens on the weekends. So I was just by myself all the time. And I was like, this sucks. I didn't really give it a chance. I probably should have. I went back home to Amerenik, lived with my parents, worked in a hardware store for 6 months. Went from a hardware store, worked at an art store for a few years while I was going to where is it? SUNY Purchase, which is an art school.
Sure, it's art.
Wasn't my kind of art though. So I was going there, and I kind of didn't really like it because it was very
like performing arts kind of.
It was performing arts, but it's also like fine arts, not like illustration and like graphic design and stuff like that. So I was going there, but I was going there for liberal arts, and I was mostly like taking women's studies courses, which was fine. I don't know why, just like they were fun courses to take. And I just like being around like all the artsy fartsy kids there back in the day. Just like I didn't relate to them. I wasn't like smearing shit on canvas and calling it art. I was drawing stuff. You know, it was different.
Yeah, sure.
You know, like there's different types of art, and my type of art is very like I just like aesthetically pleasing stuff, like stuff that's cool to look at, not necessarily like
it's not as conceptual.
Right, exactly. So I started working at a bicycle shop. I'd always been into bicycles all my life. Started working at a bicycle shop. After a year and a half at SUNY Purchase, my dad hurt himself at work. Couldn't really afford to work anymore, so I was like, all right, I got to go work full time.
What did he do?
He fell off a ladder at work. He was a janitor at, not even a janitor, he was a kitchen helper was his title at Inertia High School.
Okay.
So he fell off a ladder, hurt himself, couldn't really work anymore. I had to kind of like help out a little bit at home.
Sure.
Working at the bicycle shop full time. I'm working at the bicycle shop full time for 12 years, and at some point I'm like, this is not fulfilling. I'm just like selling rich people bicycles. I love bicycles. This is not fun for me though. It's like making somebody else a lot of money.
Yeah.
and just busting my ass doing it. I'd never worked harder than I'd work in a bike shop in June, for 13. It was the hardest I'd ever worked. And I was like, I'm done with this. It doesn't do anything for me. So I'd always been getting tattooed, always been into art. Took a long hiatus for art. Met my wife, got married, we bought an apartment here, and so
After you were going to school Purchase, and you worked at the bike shop, and then you were not doing art, not drawing at that period?
not really, honestly. I got so into riding my bike and working 60, 70 hours a week at the bike shops. This was very little time to do art, and I just didn't have any interest in it until, I started, thinking about other things that I could do with my life, and like I said, I was still getting tattooed a bit. And what happened was I was doing a bike race in Connecticut at Bethel, and I met this guy. His name was Eric Merrill.
Oh,
and,
sure, I remember. He worked at Dark Side, right?
Dark Side, but Hope Gallery now. I think he's one of the owners at Hope Gallery. So yeah, so I was like, I met this guy. He's like a tattooer. He actually tattooed the guy who was tattooing me. I was like, that's pretty cool. We kind of we know someone in common.
Who was the guy who were you getting your story from?
Eli Quinters. So he's like this.
I'm not familiar with him.
He's like a very traditional tattooer. I think he's at Smith Street in Williamsburg or somewhere down there in Brooklyn. I don't really know honestly anymore.
Okay.
But so met Eric. We knew each other through the bike racing scene a little bit, and kind of got the itch to get tattooed again. I'm like, let me look this guy up. I looked him up. It's at this shop called Hope Gallery in New Haven. And I'm looking on their website for Hope Gallery, and I'm like, this is just blowing my fucking mind. Yeah. I was like, I don't know, it was like a 12-year-old discovering porn or something. It was just like, whoa, oh my God, look at all this. Like, I was just like blown away by what I was seeing. It was, so I was looking at it, I'm like, this is tattooing nowadays? Like, this is what tattooing is? It's art. It's not just like stickers on the body. And it was stuff that I could relate to. It was like very illustrative and just like cool shit to look at. And it wasn't like conceptual. It was very like, this is what it is. Look at it. If you like it, cool. And so just seeing all this stuff on the Hope Gallery website, Eric's, Joe Capobianco.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Capobianco was one of the originators of New School.
Yeah, exactly. Really. And like looking at his stuff was phenomenal. And Phil Young was doing some crazy New School stuff back then. Christian Perez, who's awesome at pretty much everything. Yeah. Awesome painter. So all these guys were doing awesome stuff. And so I started getting tattooed by Eric a little bit, and I was getting more and more interested in learning to tattoo. And so I got an apprenticeship in the Bronx when I was also still working full time at the bike shop. So doing 90-hour weeks, just like between the bike shop and learning to tattoo.
Where'd you get your apprenticeship at?
It was a small little shop in the Bronx called Six Line Inc. It's not open anymore.
Oh, no,
basically, like one of the first guys who tattooed me in White Plains. I was like so desperate for an apprenticeship that I asked him if he would teach me, and he was like, "Sure, give me $3,000 and I'll teach you for 6 months." And so it wasn't really the greatest apprenticeship, but it got me. It got me to tattooing.
Did it get you the basics, you think?
It taught me how tough the industry could be, and it taught me that I really, it really kind of made me appreciate the fact that one day if I could do this, like I'll appreciate it. It's not going to be like just like, oh, I learned to tattoo and that's what it was. It really made me want it, and it really made me grow to appreciate how hard it was to become a tattooer. Where nowadays I think it's very easy to get. I mean, maybe not easy, but there's more avenues to learn to tattoo nowadays than there was 10 years ago. And
now you can learn online.
What's that?
You can learn online now.
You can learn online.
I think that's crazy, but
all sorts of bullshit. Just watch YouTube videos, But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I didn't learn anything, but I learned very little about the technical aspects of tattooing in my apprenticeship. My friend Hank Meyerson, who got me the apprenticeship, he was, I think, instrumental in you know, kind of really, you know, letting me know that I could be a tattooer. And once I kind of like parted ways with that shop over some little bullshit, and I don't really need to get into it, but basically just me and the owner of that shop, the guy who was apprenticing me, we were kind of butt heads a lot. We just like we're very different personalities.
Personality difference didn't.
Yeah. So it just didn't work
everything
out.
Works out. Right?
Ended up tattooing out of my apartment for a few months until I found a kind of a shitty shop that just opened to work at upstate a little bit in up near Peekskill. So from there, I was in the shop and I did maybe 6 tattoos within the 6 months that I worked there. I was mostly tattooing like the people who worked there for free. But still, you know, I was just so desperate to tattoo that I was just like, I'm gonna. Alexis is going off in the background. We'll just ignore that. So I was just so desperate to learn a tattoo that I got into another shop through a friend of mine, Chris Mahoney, and this was just like the busy street shop, but kind of like the crummy shop that you don't really work at. Very gritty, you know, a lot of sex in the bathroom, drugs in the hallway type of shit. And I learned to tattoo there because it was so busy. I learned to tattoo. I learned more there than I'd say through my apprenticeship, just because I was tattooing constantly. And then from there, I managed to learn enough to be able to get a job here at this shop, Addicted to Ink. Little Mike was awesome enough to give me the opportunity, and coming here, I think I learned more than anywhere else because, you know, Little Mike and all the guys here actually know how to tattoo. Ralph Giordano gave me a lot of instruction, and so I was learning from people who were tattooing all day and actually knew how to tattoo and telling me what I was doing wrong and what I was doing right. And from there, I kind of developed more of a style and learned how to do things the way I do now. And once I learned the correct way to tattoo and deal with tattoo machines and clients and stuff like that, then from there I started figuring out the way I wanted to tattoo and you know, doing things the back-assed way that I do now. So I feel like if you're going to tattoo, you know, a very specialized way, I think that you should learn just like the basics first and like really know how to tattoo. And so this shop here was awesome when it came to that. So,
about what year did you come here to Addicted?
I was tattooing for maybe 2 years before I started here, and that was, man, I think it must have been like the year before my kid was born. So maybe 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And so I was here for about a year and a half, built up a little bit of a portfolio style and stuff like that, and ended up moving up to Massachusetts to work with all my heroes. So I ended up a Night Owl for 3 years, and I was working with when I started tattooing, I had no idea that I would ever be working with, you know, Timmy B and you know, Kelly Doty and have all these guest artists come through. And so that was super fortunate that I got to be up there for a few years and learn from all these awesome tattooers.
They got a real collection of artists up in what's that, kind of like central Massachusetts?
Central Western Massachusetts. Yeah. So
I mean, there's Timmy B and Kelly Doty and Matt Driscoll and
yeah. Well, a lot of those people have since moved to Salem. You know, like Matt Driscoll and Kelly. They're all in Salem now doing their thing. But still, Massachusetts is this sort of like hub for new school tattooers somehow. You know, like all the guys in Night Owl. So you have Timmy and Lindsay and you know, Shane Baker, Adrian Novo was there. All these awesome tattooers that are in Night Owl, and then immediately, like just the town over in East Hampton, before things went south with Off the Map, you know, Matt Driscoll was there, Tim Senecal. They've since gone and done other things with other shops. But then on the sort of towards Boston, you have, you know, Bobby Kane, who's fucking amazing dude, amazing artist. You know, Tony Ciavaro, one of the OGs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't make him like him anymore. He's just an amazing dude. And so then further up in Salem, you've got, you know, Kelly and Jess Brown and Sean Gardner. All these, there's so many new school tattooers in Massachusetts, and I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Maybe that's the place for some reason. It's just
But for me, like, you know, in Night Owl, there was too many of us for such a small town, so I couldn't, you know, I had to kind of come back here for family reasons and stuff. But it's amazing.
I've heard that at that at Night Owl everyone goes for Timmy B. Like it's hard if you're not him to get work. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I can't vouch for that.
Once you build your clientele, it's Timmy was definitely the draw there, and I'm sure he still is. But so a lot of stuff that he didn't do, he was more into doing objects. Okay. And so if he didn't want to do a character like I want my dog dressed up as Zorro or whatever, then his assistant would refer that person to either me or Lindsay, and so we I got to do a fair share of cool stuff there. I think I did more new school tattooing there than I do here now, because it's just less of a crowd of it here, and people were, for some reason, were less scared to travel to the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, than they are to New York City area. It's cheaper to be there anyways. So.
Sure.
But yeah, so Timmy was the draw, and then we had, we built up a little bit of a clientele there and stuff. But ultimately, most people were there to see Timmy, and for good reason. He's one of the best tattooers in the world. So
I mean, he's a great tattooer, and I follow him for a long time on Instagram. But I mean, and honestly, that's a shop where it looks like, everyone at least that posts stuff on Instagram, it looks like everyone is great. I mean, everyone is. It's not like a shop where you could walk in and say, where you'd send your friend and say, well, only get it from this guy or only get it from that girl.
No,
like, it looks like everyone there is just
anybody
really on
who
the
works
ball.
there is really good, and now they have a couple of realism guys that are probably busier than the new school guys. I know that when Seth Holmes came to work at the shop a couple of years back, I was like, yeah, Timmy kind of was like, should we get this guy Seth in here? I was like, yeah, let's get him in here. And I thought mostly because he's not a new school guy, so he's not going to step on everybody else's toes. Right. And he ended up being busier than everybody else. He does color realism and, black and gray realism and a lot of neo-trad stuff. So he maintained a very busy schedule there, busier than I think anybody else. And then also they got this guy, I don't know him too well because he started working when I left, but Jake Zuko. But I think that he's like a local there, and he does like some really, really cool black and gray realism stuff. So I think that those guys, that type of tattooing, anywhere you go in the world, you're going to be busy because everybody, not everybody, but a vast majority of people like black and gray and color realism than they do color new school,
It's funny almost in a way, because when I first got into tattooing a long time ago, black and gray was the exception. I mean, it was very regional.
Really?
And
like in California and stuff. That was
in California. They had all like the Cholo stuff, and that was all black, gray, and that's so I guess California and the Southwest. That's that one like niche kind of group that's getting it. And in New York, there was a lot of guys in the hardcore and punk rock scene that were getting black and gray. But I mean, other than that, it was really not.
It was more just like color tattoos,
but
tattoos
were color. I mean,
not specialized. You're talking about like
right, not like with the amount of art behind it that there is now. I mean, there was a there was a group of people when I first got into it. Like, I don't want to leave anyone out, but like Guy Aitchison and Aaron Kane and
these guys who were doing more with color.
These guys that were doing with color. I mean, they were just pushing tattooing. I mean, beyond where it had been for.
Right. It wasn't just like forever. Flash that you drew and picked off the wall.
Right. You didn't just pick flash. These guys did custom work, and it was well, not to say anything bad about traditional, but I mean, it has typically a flat look. I mean, it looks like a picture.
Yeah. Well, it's meant to be done fast, and there's definitely.
I mean, it's just a certain style, but I mean, these guys were doing stuff that had texture and dimension and depth, and I was like, oh my God, it was just so. It was just so
different.
So
it was just such a departure to what was going on everywhere else, for sure.
I mean, color was the thing. I mean, black and gray, like I said, it was a very regional.
I can't imagine being one of those guys, because I think that it must have been scary, not kind of like knowing what the result was going to be. Yeah. If you're kind of, so everything was kind of done a certain way for a long time, and then to try something new that wasn't like tried and true, wasn't tested, I wonder, when those guys would see things come back a few years later and then be like, well, geez, like half the tattoo's gone. So I wonder, I mean, I think that there's probably some sort of like learning curve there about stuff like that. Whereas like these traditional tattoos, you get an outline, you get like black into another color, it's going to be there forever.
Right.
So, and I think nowadays, a lot of people do a good balance and of understanding that the contrast has to be there and there has to be enough black in the tattoo, stuff like that. So.
I think one of the one of the big debates in the tattoo world is stuff like that. When you have a lot of people that are doing like hyper realistic color portraits. I mean, there seems to be a lot of debate as to are they going to hold up if they're not putting a lot of black in there to hold it together.
Well, it doesn't have to be just black. So I think that
listen, I'm not taking a side, but I know that there's I know there's a lot of that. This is a bone of contention.
There was definitely a lot of
there
definitely is. I think still a lot of talk. I don't personally. I don't stay involved too much in the sort of tattoo world. Like a lot of people, I kind of try to stay away from the drama these days and stay like, I work and then I go home and do my thing. You know what I mean? Like, whereas I think a lot of these people, tattooing is their life, and it is all consuming. It was all consuming for probably the first 8 years of my career. That like all I did and all I wanted to do and all I wanted to think about was tattooing. So for a lot of these people, that is all that they do and think about, and so they take it very personal. I don't think there's any wrong like answer to all that stuff.
I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying I know that's And trust me, I love it. I love when I see these guys that are like super talented doing it. Evan Olin and
that's amazing.
And Pooch and some of these guys that are doing these and I look at these things, I'm like, oh my God, I'm blown away by how by the artisticness of it, by just how talented these guys are.
I think some of them look better than the references. You know, like when that's like so. Realism guys are like, I wouldn't say that anybody can copy a picture, but there are certain people who can replicate an image, and then there's people who, like, when you do them, it looks different than the picture, and it looks better, or like, and that's how you get style into realism. Like, perfect examples are, like you said, Evan Olin and Pooch in particular. I think like they have these styles that when you look at it, it's not just the picture; it's gone beyond the picture, and I think that's cool. It's like it's cool to see that they're. I don't know if it's just necessarily like their brain telling their hand to do that, or they're like consciously being like, I got to make this image punchier than it is, because then what separates you from anybody else that's doing that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's always going to be raw ability at the base of it.
For sure.
Let me backtrack from. So you're working at the bike shop.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And you hook up with Eric Merrill at a bike race.
Yep.
And at that time, you said you were kind of out of the art.
Yeah.
Hooking up with him and having this tattoo awakening, kind of, so to speak. That's kind of what got you back into art?
I was testing the waters with art a little bit, because there was a guy at the bike shop, one of the mechanics, who he wanted me to draw a tattoo for him, or I would just draw things for him, as a gift, because he was like always helping me out with some stuff. And he was one of the guys who I think was just like, yeah, you should learn to tattoo, like, you tattoo, I'll let you practice on me, that type of shit.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like dipping my toe in the water of art again. My brother was always into art, so he had all these like kind of alternative art magazines around, and I would see art by like guys like Mark Ryden and John Jesse and Audrey Kawasaki, like all these like lowbrow artists, and I'd be like, this stuff's really cool, but it was so like artsy and like creative, and I like when I do paintings, when I do art, when people tell me just draw whatever you want and tattooed on me, it's very simple, and it's very like kind of straightforward. There's not a lot of noise to it. So, like nothing really appealed to me like tattooing did when I started seeing tattoo art that was, current. So, that, and I mean, I was at that point, I was a little bit more into like custom culture, like hot rod car culture for a little bit, and so seeing that, and that kind of re-inspired me to be a little bit more into tattooing and stuff like that, so so I got, at that point I got more into like that sort of almost like folk art sort of stuff, like Day of the Dead stuff, and even like traditional stuff. When I first started tattooing, I wanted to be a neo-trad tattooer.
Really?
But my hands and my brain wouldn't let me. But like that's the stuff that appealed to me back then, because specifically I think that I was really into I was getting more into that kind of like car culture and rockabilly culture and stuff, and like most people who are into hardcore kind of dip their toe into that for a little bit for some reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so from there, then I got into that Hope Gallery website. But that was definitely the catalyst. That definitely opened my eyes, without a doubt. Like that was, I would spend so much time on the Hope Gallery website looking at those pictures, and just when I finally like booked an appointment with Eric and I went there, I was just blown away by the actual shop, because there's real art on the walls. It's not just pictures of Flash, or it's not just, you know, it's like real art from artists that I was getting into. And you know, you go and you see an Amber Carr painting hanging up, and you're just like, holy shit, man, that's real. Like, get up there and look at it an inch away from it and just be like, holy fuck. Like, you know, Eric Merrill had this in his booth. He had a Brian Despain painting, and just like you're looking. For me, seeing that type of stuff was more valuable than going to a art gallery and seeing a Picasso, because it's like, oh, cool, like, you know, it's cool and it's special, but it's not what I'm into.
Right.
So going and seeing something that you're into and getting to see that, like that was something else, you know.
Yeah.
That was and like seeing stuff online or on the internet, it's like so cool and it's inspiring. But anytime I see art that I like in person, you're just like, I don't know, it just lights a fire under your ass. It's like, man, that's real, and I want to make something real that I can hold, and you know, just it was special to see that stuff.
It's interesting to me that you said you wanted to do traditional first, because when you had said you went to the new school to try to get into illustration, I guess because of what you're known for now with the new school, I guess my mind connected kind of illustration to new school, and I said, oh, he's kind of always been into this. I
mean, I have. Stuff. That's always been the way that I draw. I was.
Is that the kind of stuff that you were drawing when you were trying to go to new school for that?
So like when I was really into art in high school and stuff, I used to draw a lot of comic booky type of stuff. Again, I was really into Star Wars, so I was drawing like sci-fi stuff. I had a little stint in high school when I was really into anime for a year, and I would draw that type of stuff. And I don't really give two craps about it anymore. But you know, like again, I was into that back when I was 18 or 17, and so it was all illustrative stuff, and that's the stuff I like. But I think that when I got into tattooing, I was kind of more into sort of the punk and hardcore culture, and I was, you know, like listening to a lot of like post-hardcore and emo stuff and stuff like that. But so being in or around that scene, everybody was getting neotrad tattoos. You know, that was the type of tattooing that everybody's into. So that's why I was into that. You know, it was just like very influenced by what was going around me when I would go see shows or you know, like
Quicksand and Take It Back Sunday. That kind of, is that kind of like
like Quicksand, Take It Back Sunday. You know, just Get Up Kids, Jimmy Eat World, like emo, not like My Chemical Romance emo. That's not emo. That's, I don't know what that is, but not to knock it. But when I say emo, I mean like actual emo, like emo as it was in the 90s, not like kids wearing like, you know, their sister's jeans and shit like that.
I think guys that have, like me and you, that have been around for a little bit longer, emo is you think of it different because you don't.
It's a subset of hardcore, you know.
Right. I mean, you think of maybe anything like from Rites of Spring and Fugazi.
Right. Exactly. Rites of Spring, Dag Nasty, stuff like that.
Dag Nasty to stuff more melodic and more.
Yeah, a little bit more. I mean, more heartfelt, but still like part.
I mean, I also think of more like screamo kind of.
Yeah, that stuff too.
That like that more mid '90s kind.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of bands from like Long Island that were into that stuff that were definitely like, you called it screamo, but it was you know, a more emotional version of hardcore, more like kind of harder on your sleeve kind of hardcore. Seisha was a band that I really liked from Long Island. iRobot was a good one. These are all just like kind of, you know, and all these guys were probably like from like the same places. You know, the guys like from Gorilla Biscuits and fucking all, you know, what's that guy's name? Walter?
Yeah, Walter.
Yeah, so all those guys, you know, like, so, and then there was like a lot of stuff I think going on in the Midwest and stuff like, again, like Promise Ring, Get Up Kids, stuff like that. So that to me, that's like emo, you know, like, you know, not, and I do like the kind of stuff that people turned into emo or called emo, you know, like, but there ended up being like a lot of, it was weird how like it transformed, and emo was this generic term for anybody who had, you know, that kind of swept black haircut that, you know, and like wore all black and thought they were vampires and shit like that.
It got a little more gothic than.
Yeah, it was like emo goth or something, you know, like AFI, you know, like they were part of that, I think, but they started off as a hardcore band, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, Davey Havoc wanted to be, or Davey Havoc was like this fucking hardcore dude from like somewhere near San Francisco, and then like he got really into like Danzig and shit, and just wanted to be more like gothy, you know. But I ate that shit up too, man. I wore, you know, all black and wore the black bands and shit like that. It's just, you know, when you're younger, you kind of stay with that sort of fashion. Now, you know, just I'm out of that nowadays.
I still wear all black, but it's more because I'm fat.
I can't. I used to wear all black. I can't do it anymore. I just.
I do kind of fat. It's easy to coordinate.
Everything matches, right? Exactly.
I don't have to worry about it too much.
I don't care anymore. I'm like 39. I got a kid. I got a wife. Like, I just don't give a shit anymore. Just fucking put on whatever's clean.
So how did you make the transition from working full time in a bike store, and then you went to Hope Gallery, and you were
definitely inspired by those guys.
Had like an aha moment, kind of.
Yeah. So you know, I started looking for that sort of apprenticeship. I got the apprenticeship. It wasn't an easy one. It was a lot of like handing out flyers in the South Bronx, and you know, tattooing gang members, and you know, like my mentor like broke me down. Like it wasn't like, you know, nowadays you kind of coddle people and you can't be mean and you can't bully people. Like his job was to break me down, and like some days I'd be going home and driving home and like not sure I could do it, and I'd be like, fuck man, I don't think I can do this. But then like, you know, you just got to push through, and like that's what makes like nothing worth doing is easy, you know what I mean? Like
sure.
So if you had to work hard for it, like it makes it more like worthwhile, you know. If it was so easy to me, I probably would have like tattooed for 3 years and been like, I'm not making as much money as I thought I would. Maybe I'll just do something else, you know. But yeah, that was definitely that time in my life was pretty rough. Just because I had so much work I had to do. So I was working at the bike shop full time.
Right.
I had to work out a deal with the owner of the bike shop to kind of cut my hours back to a little bit so I could do this full time, and spent all my free time drawing and painting and, you know, learning about tattooing. And, you know, it was probably not the easiest on my wife because, you know, we had just got married, and all of a sudden, like, I'm kind of like working 70 hours, 80 hours a week. And when I'm not working, I'm at home drawing. I stopped riding my bike entirely for like 3-4 years, you know, just kind of got a little unhealthy as far as like fitness wise. I like to be, you know, in some sort of shape and just be like healthy and feel good. And,
sure.
You know, it's just kind of getting into that tattoo lifestyle of just sort of sitting on my ass all day and drawing and eating unhealthy food. And so, you know, tattooing is an all-consuming sort of way of life, you know. For a lot of these guys, it's like if you really want to excel at it, you got to be in it like 100%.
Yeah, that's how it seems. I mean, so many tattooers seem to have not much life outside of tattooing.
Yeah, I think for some of them it's maybe a choice, but I kind of like, I was like that for a long bit. And then after I left Massachusetts, I knew that I had to find some more balance in life. Otherwise, I just wasn't going to be happy just doing tattooing all the time. So took a sort of backseat to it a little bit.
What made you want to go up there first? I mean, just it was the opportunity to work with those artists.
For sure, it was the hunger to get better. You know, like here in New York in Westchester County, people don't really want new school tattoos, or not so much. And so I wasn't really doing a lot of the type of tattooing I wanted to do. I'd have to go to conventions and hopefully snag something, or do a lot of free tattoos on my friends to be able to do like the cool type of shit that I wanted to, and knowing that hopefully in the future it would get me to a point where I could charge money for these type of tattoos and people would come to me for it. Like that's, you know, like I think that a lot of tattooers nowadays, they sort of feel like, oh, I'm gonna start off tattooing and I'm gonna be doing the type of tattoos I want to do right away, and I'm only gonna do my style. And it's just like, no, you got to give that shit away for a really long time before you're making any money on it. So basically, I did a convention, met Timmy B there. You know, he's always a huge influence on me, and you know, we sort of got friendly, and he was living in Long Island, and it was just like things were going south there for him. So sort of ended up moving back up to Massachusetts where he's from. And, you know, I got invited to go up to that shop, and I wasn't going to say no. I mean, you know, I told the wife and she was like, okay with it. And we had just had a kid, and it was tough. We sold our apartment, you know, moving up to a different state where you don't really know anybody with a 6-month-old. And
Sure.
Luckily, when I did go up, you know, Lindsay used to work at this shop here with me.
Right.
And so we went up together, you know, and so we had like a little bit of a support system between me, her, and my wife. And So we kind of had each other's backs and helped each other. That made it certainly easier to move somewhere where you didn't really know anybody, to have that one other person there to like relate to, and we all lived together for a year, and it was cool. That worked out well, for in the beginning. So without that, it would have been a lot harder to move up there.
Yeah, it's always easy to have people or that you're more than that you're familiar with, your friends with, your
sure, yeah,
other than just like casual acquaintances.
So we went up there. It was a little tough in the beginning to book appointments and stuff like that, but got the ball rolling, and Timmy helped us out a lot to try to sort of promote us and do stuff like that. And gradually the shop and everybody who was working there became the family that I didn't have around there. So I just spent all my time, 6 days a week at the shop. If I wasn't tattooing, we were hanging out and having fun, or skateboarding, or doing whatever. And got to a point where it was almost too much, where I was spending so much time with my tattoo family that I was almost neglecting my real family, my wife and kid. And it took me a year or so to kind of realize kind of how much I wasn't balanced in life, like how I was so focused on everything at the tattoo shop and not really at home. So at some point, me and my wife made the decision to move back here to New York so she could get her job back teaching here. And it was easy enough for me to find a tattoo job. I mean, I can, I'm lucky enough to be talented enough to go to whatever shop, and hopefully if they have space, they're going to, have a job for me. It's not like I had to show them my portfolio and beg and plead. It's just like, and ultimately, I called up Mikey, who's one of the owners here at Addicted, and I was like, I might need your advice on some stuff. We're gonna move back up to New York, and I was intending to move back up here and open my own private studio, but he was kind of like, well, we're going to be expanding the shop, and if you want to come and work at the shop here, you can kind of treat it like your private studio, more or less, kind of like make your own hours and sort of, I was like, all right, well, cool. If like that's the deal, and I have freedom with when I can work and how I can work, like, sure, I'll come back to the shop, because I really wanted to do something on my own and kind of make it my own. But I think currently, like, the smart thing to do is this is already set up. So like,
yeah, I mean, it's already established.
Yeah, and I don't have to do, like moving back someplace where I can build more clientele and there's walk-ins, So whether I have appointments or not here, I managed to stay busy enough, which is great. And I'm always thankful to Mike and the crew here at Addicted, because they helped me get into the proper place in tattooing, and then they also welcomed me back when I had, I hopefully I didn't leave them high and dry when we left, but me and Lindsay, we were two artists, and we were leaving the shop together, and we kind of left a little bit of a hole here. Yeah. So I always felt awful about that, but I I'm not the type of person I don't try to burn bridges or anything, and it's just kind of being human, like staying in touch with people.
Come back to an established shop, so that that gives you a lot of stuff. It gives you space, like you said, it gives you walk-ins and
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always the opportunity, if you ever wanted to do your own studio, you could still.
I wouldn't count it out in the future, though. My eyes aren't like on that right now. I just I'm enjoying being where I am just because of the freedom and that type of stuff. And if I were to open my own shop, I think about it sometimes, and it's like, if I were to open my own shop, every problem is my problem. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's so easy here. I come to work, I do my tattoos. If there's walk-ins, I'll stick around and do them. I hang out with the crew here sometimes, go home when I need to. It's very easy.
When I first got into the electrical field, I said I'm going to work, and here in Westchester, you need 11 and a half years to get an electrical license.
Oh God,
so
man!
I said I'm going to. It's like being a doctor. It's a little ridiculous,
really.
But so I said I'm going to work. I'll work for a while and I'll learn, and then when the time comes, I'll get my license, and then I'll get my own shop and this and working in a handful of shops, which were all small places. It was usually me and the owner, and one or two other guys. You get to hear a lot about the complaints. Oh, this one didn't pay. Oh, this one doesn't want to pay what they said they would pay. And
it's almost such a headache to be the boss.
To own your own business is a lot of headache and a lot of stuff. And it always makes me think of that scene from Goodfellas where more near the end, but where Paulie takes over the restaurant business from that guy, and then they burn it down. But when he's talking about taking over the business, he says, well, he's got Paulie to back him, and if he's got problems, he'd go to Paulie, but he's always got to pay him.
Right.
You're not getting this, fuck you, pay me. You're not getting this, fuck you, pay me.
Fuck you, pay me, yeah.
When I work for someone else, pay me. If the guy didn't pay you, I'm sorry, but pay me.
Right, right.
And so, there's
if someone's not getting paid, it's you.
someone's right. Someone's getting paid, it's your problem. It's not my problem. You pay me every week,
yeah,
no matter
exactly.
what. And I think that is probably true in construction and in tattooing. And I mean, it's not the same because you don't get paid directly by, but I mean, that overhead, those issues that owners come up with,
yeah.
you don't have to deal with.
Well,
any
that's
of that
exactly,
here.
and I'm trying to keep my life stress free as possible. I got so much other shit going on between, trying to squeeze in some painting here and there, and ride my bike, and be, hanging out with a kid, and so the wife, and trying to maintain a family.
Stress free is the way to live, man.
Trying.
Stress is a killer.
It's tough here in New York because
God.
Everybody's so amped up, and they're just so like, gotta do it. You gotta work. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. It's like, dude, like so many. Even living in Massachusetts for 3 years, it was tough coming back because everything was so laid back there. And here, it's like everybody's like so fucking like wired all the time to do shit. They're like,
once you get out of
chill out, like. But you gotta work like 80 hours a week here to maintain, to pay your bills and stuff.
Yeah, I think once you get out of the New York metro area, it's just like a different life, a different living.
Yeah,
it's
even
just,
other major cities, it's different.
Yeah, Westchester in the New York metro area is certainly one of the most expensive areas in a country.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
And touching on that and touching on what you had said before about when kids are getting into it now, they think they're gonna, start off as rock stars, basically start off doing what they want to do.
Yep.
Do you think a lot of people get into tattooing and think they're going to be rich?
I mean, I don't think that people are getting into tattooing to be like rich. I mean,
rich, but
I can only speak from like my mentality. Like money was never something that, I mean, I grew up poor. So as long as like I had enough money to pay the bills and all that type of stuff, it's fine with me. Like I don't need to live extravagantly. I don't spend a lot of money, and I think kind of my biggest expense is just bike crap. You know what I mean? Like that's my vice. But yeah, I mean, like there's some people who get into it, and I think that they maybe like they want to be a little. Some people are flashy, so some people like get into it and they want to have that fancy car and they want to have that fancy clothes, like, well, But I don't think that like I think it's kind of mixed. So some people get into it and they want to like hustle. They want that hustle. They want to charge a lot. They want to get that sort of lifestyle. And some people think that that's associated with tattooing.
Well, I think that a lot of people, and maybe in other parts of the country, it's not the same, but in this area at least, I think people see hourly rates that are like, $200, $250 an hour, and they think that all that money goes right into the tattooer's pocket, which I think is not true. Right, but I mean, the shop gets a split.
Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that.
Right.
But
I'm not asking you to
no.
tell me how much money you make. That's not.
I know,
not
but I would say that myself, I make surprisingly less than most people would think, but I'm fine with that because I pay my bills and I have free time to do stuff, and I'm not a slave to this fucking machine that most people are around here. Like
I think from talking to tattooers, I think a lot of them make less than people think, but I'm saying I think they said at least in this part of the country, people see the rates and they think, these guys are just
killing
raking
it,
in hand over fist.
Oh well, maybe some people are. So here's a great example.
Maybe some people.
Here's a great example is that so my really good friend Brandon Schulteis, he owns a shop in Long Island or a studio, Black Sales.
Hi Brandon. He was. I contacted him about doing the interview. Yeah. And he was. Although he declined, which is fine, he was very nice about it. He actually got back to me and, we wrote back and forth once or twice, which was nice because most people just didn't. Most people just ignored me, which I can understand. But it was very nice of him to. Yeah,
I mean he's like a quiet guy, so he didn't, like.
Yeah, he said he doesn't like the way he sounds on you know what? I can understand. I hate my voice.
Yeah, trust me, I'm right there with you. Well, so like Brandon is, he owns his own shop, Black Sales. It's a studio, small studio. He's got 2 other tattooers there. They charge. So I'll just use this as an example. the going rate in Long Island is $200 an hour.
Okay.
Long Island is, there's money there.
Sure.
But I think that Westchester County has more money. I feel like there's more people with more money here. However, most of the guys in this shop here charge $150 an hour. I charge $175 an hour. If I tried to get $200 an hour, my clientele would be gone. And I don't know why. I don't know if the mentality is different, or in Long Island, people know quality and they'll spend it. But here in Westchester, they're like, oh, I'll spend like $300 on a pair of sneakers, but I want my tattoos cheap for some reason. It's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing. And it's very strange that, I don't know if it's exclusive to Westchester, but it blows my mind that, I talked to Brandon about this stuff, and he's like, why aren't you charging like $200, $250 an hour? Like, you're worth it. And I'm just like, I can't get it. Like, there's no way I could get it. People would not, I have battles with clients sometimes about you said it was going to be this much, but it's, I don't want to spend this much. Like, can we do it cheaper? I'm like, I don't. Yeah, yes, tattooing is a fun job, but it's also my job.
But it's a job still.
And I work in one of the most expensive places in the country to live, but I don't make more because I'm a tattooer here. I make the same. I make probably average of what a tattooer around the country works. Excuse me. The average tattooer probably makes about the same as I do here, which is fine. I'm not complaining about it, but I feel like, yes, there are tattooers out there that are probably making money hand over fist.
Oh, listen, I mean, there's always going to be someone. I mean, the shops that are known for doing celebrities.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, like Bang Bang.
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure.
I've heard the stories. I don't know for sure. But I
I
also
can't
know a
say
tattooer
either.
who worked there, and he left because it wasn't worth it, going into the city every day and all that stuff. And
that's
yeah, no, I'm definitely not
that's
saying
neither
anything
here nor
negative
there,
about the shop itself or anything.
Listen, I'm not even. I wasn't even trying to imply that that tattooers are rich or that they're getting rich off their clients.
But they're not.
I was just trying to say I think that a lot of people are under the impression like you're under the impression that doctors all make a lot of money, even though realistically they don't. But I mean, some definitely do.
Oh yeah,
and some don't.
It all depends on
sure.
what how they can swing it. Right.
I'm sure.
So I tattooed a client from around here, and he it was just a weird situation because he kind of thought that I was. He's like, oh, you probably make a lot of money, right? You probably make six figures. I'm like, psh, my fucking wildest dreams. Yeah. I make six figures, but he had this impression that I was making a lot of money, and then when I went to go charge him, I gave him a pretty big discount. I charged him maybe $500 for an $800 tattoo, and he was still kind of like, oh, I thought it was only going to be this much. And I'm like, so where am I making $100,000 if you want to pay me half of what I'm worth? It's weird. I don't get it.
So I said, I think a lot of people are under the impression that tattooers are just raking it in, but
I'm gonna break it down for some people here.
Not the case. All right.
I'll break it down for some people here right now. I'm not scared of saying it. All right, so my wife's a New York City school teacher, and she works very hard, but I don't make anywhere. I mean, I work less than her, but I definitely make a lot less than her.
So if school teacher's a tough job. I know a few.
It is, but tough. She doesn't get paid bad. She doesn't get paid hand over fist, but I'm just saying that average tattooer making less than a New York City school teacher for sure. Say I do one tattoo a day, and on the high side it's a $600 tattoo. I get 60% of that, right? So 6 times 6 is $360.
And that's 60-40 split. That's pretty standard in
that's,
the industry.
50-50, 60-40 is somewhere around there. Depends upon how long you've been tattooing and all that. So that's $360. If I made that every 4 days a week, which I don't, I maybe do that twice a week, and then the other days a week are maybe $150. Some days I'm not making any money. I'm doing a touch up. Right. Some days I get a no show and I get one walk in and I make $60. So $360 times, say you do that 4 days a week, that's $1,400 a week. Not even. But then you're talking about you've got to pay your taxes. So on top of that,
are you considered an independent contractor?
Yes.
So your taxes are high.
Oh God, yeah. So 1,400 times 50, say you get 2 weeks off. That's $72,000 a year. And this is like ballparking. I do not make this much, but $72,000 a year times that by 0.7, you got to take your taxes out. That's $50,000 a year that you take home. You're talking about probably spending about $500 a month on supplies. So that's another minus, what is it, $6,000.
Are you sponsored by anyone? Just
No, I don't have sponsors. By choice mostly, but yeah, that's a whole other thing. So, all right, so roughly, your average tattooer, if they're making that much, which they're probably not, is taking home about $44,000 a year, and that's after spending money on supplies, after paying your taxes, which you should be paying, after, because there's plenty of people out there who aren't working who need your money.
Yeah.
But God, so yeah, just put that in your pipe and smoke it for a bit.
So
tattooers are not making a lot of money.
So depending where in the world or where in the country, in this country at least, you may be listening to that, 44,000 may seem like a decent amount to live.
It's not,
especially if you have
not in Westchester County.
A spouse, right? Especially if you have a spouse that's earning a decent living. But in Westchester, that's tough, man. That's hard to live on in Westchester, especially if you got a kid. And you got and
Right.
if you want to
Definitely not rolling in dough.
go out to eat once a month or something.
Yeah, right.
So
So
it's super expensive.
when we moved back to about 2 years ago, we found a modest apartment that was 1,100 square feet, 2 bedrooms, and we paid $2,700 a month for it.
Wow.
So think about that. That's like $30,000 a year, right there, just in rent.
Yeah.
My kid's daycare was $1,400 a month. All this stuff, it all adds up. Groceries. It costs money to park here. It's not cheap living here. So if anybody has any illusions that I or any other tattooer in Westchester County is making a lot of money, I don't know any of them. And the ones that I do know that are making money are busting their ass, working 6 days a week and doing 8 hours of tattooing a day. So, if they can afford a fine German car or a nice apartment or a Rolex, they've earned it. Don't think that they're just like partying every night. They're fucking drawing every night and tattooing every day.
I gotta say, I wouldn't hold it against a tattooer to have some luxury in their life, because this is go to a tattooer. In theory, you're paying for their ability. And
Sure, yeah.
It's not something that everyone has. It's not something that even every tattooer has. So when you go to someone, they're putting you're trusting in their ability enough to put something on you forever.
Exactly.
And that should be, they should be compensated for that. You deserve to make.
Well, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean.
But people aren't seeing. They see what's on TV and the flashiness of it, and the type of tattooers. I mean, I got a lot of friends who've been on the TV shows, but half of the tattooers that go like on these TV shows, they're flashy. They just want to be on TV. Right. They want to show how like kind of how that they're hot shots or whatever, and then some of them don't. Some of them are legitimately awesome tattooers and deserve to be on those shows. It's such a weird mix on those shows. I don't even watch them anymore. But basically, like if you think about it, a garbage man makes more money than a tattooer and gets benefits.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of the coin, and the reason I became a tattooer is because, it's a fulfilling job. You get to tattoo. You get to create something every day, and you get, if you have the means to do it, or if you don't have the responsibility at home, you can travel and you can meet great people and make great friends, or you can set your own schedule if your boss isn't a total prick,
Yeah.
That's why I continue to tattoo. I could probably go back to the bike shop and make more money and I get a steady income and get benefits, but I don't want to. I want to tattoo. I get to hang out with cool people every day, and that's
You get an artistic outlet.
For the most part, we are our own bosses. Although we do have owners of the shop that we work under, but yeah, there's nothing like working for yourself. So for me personally, it's worth it to make less money and have more freedom and enjoy my life more and have more balance.
Well, that's worth a lot. I mean, certainly a lot of people don't like their jobs. I've had jobs that I've hated in my life. Where it's just
I'm sure everybody has.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has. Where it's torturous to go into, you hate it, and I mean, to have a job that you really love, and that's, unfortunately, it has no monetary value, but it's certainly nice nice for your life. You know,
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it's okay. I think with everybody, it's a very case by case thing. I don't like I said, I don't live extravagantly. I've you know, wearing the same T-shirt I've had for 10 years, and you know, I buy a new pair of shoes twice a year, and it's, you know, it's like I just don't give a shit about that stuff. I'd rather, for me, like money is you know, I need it to survive. I'm not worried about like having very extravagant things. I'd rather be wealthy in experiences than wealthy in materials. You know, and if there are things that I want, then I'll save my money for them, or, you know, I like I said, I'm really into bicycle racing and stuff like that, and I have 6 bikes at home, and they're all not cheap bikes, but I work a day a week at the bike shop, and I don't even get paid in cash. You know, they just give me store credit, and I get the store discount, and that's how I support that habit. You know.
Yeah.
So like,
you know, I mean, if it's something, you know, that you're actively involved in, that you're actually actively doing, and you know, it's worth.
Yeah.
It's worth investing something into.
Sure. I mean, it's.
You're not going to do a bike race in a $50 Huffy you get at Toys R Us.
Sure. I mean, you could, but be interesting. No, but it's one of those things. It's just something I enjoy, and you know, I don't collect stuff. I use it. So like, if I spend $4,000 on a bike, I'm using that bike almost every day. I don't. I have a hard time, and I shouldn't knock it, because I'm you know, everybody's got their own things that they enjoy and their own kind of outlets and stuff, but I've never understood collectors, you know, like people who collect, not tattoo collectors, I love them, but like people who collect like toys and stuff like that. Like, I mean, if you're into it, it's cool, and I like them. I think they look cool, but people who like collect stuff and then keep it in the box, it's just like a weird thing to me, because it's like, you know, when I buy stuff, I want to use it. So, you know, like, and that's not to knock anybody who does it, because many of my great friends all are into that type of stuff, and I just, for me personally, it's like when I spend money on something, it's like, I'm going to use this thing, and if I don't, then I'm going to sell it. You know,
I'm kind of the same way. I'm more into the use of it than the nostalgia of it.
Sure.
But, you know, it's different strokes. I mean, I remember back in the day getting a record that, you know, that's unopened and this and that, and the first thing I do is go home and open it up and play it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, you know, but I didn't really buy it. You know, I half bought it to collect it, but I mostly bought it for what it was.
You're gonna hold on to it, but you're also gonna use it.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm gonna play it. Back then I was put it on a tape and listen to it. Now, you know, sounds so archaic to say it now.
Oh God,
but,
yeah.
but, you know, that kind of stuff. But I mean,
yeah.
My girlfriend's a big collector/hoarder.
Oh, so, is she?
Oh God.
Is that hard to live with?
Yes, it's hard. I'm not. You know what? I'm kind of messy myself, but she doesn't want to get rid of anything. So.
Yeah, that's hard. I have family who are kind of on that hoarder sort of thing, and it's tough. It's like a sickness. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to be like that a little when I was young. Like, I didn't want to clean it up. I didn't want to throw anything. Oh, what if I need it one day, or what if but you know.
Yeah.
As I got older, it's like.
Oh well, you get older and you run out of space, and especially around here, there's no. I mean, you know, most people don't have garages or attics and stuff like that, so. You know, I always had a rule of like, you know, I'll hold on to something if I like it or want it, and if I haven't used it in a year, it's got to go.
Yeah, that's what I got. A friend of mine, he's got whatever, because there's a 3-year rule or a 4-year rule. Like, if I haven't seen it or used it or touched it or whatever in a couple
years,
get
rid of it.
Oh yeah.
And then inevitably, like 6 months later, you're like, man, why did I get rid of that thing?
Yeah. You know? I have a tendency to hold on to like tools and materials for jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I've had stuff in my attic for 10 years, and it's probably all still usable, but it's just a pain in the neck to get to it. I never even.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's never going to get used, but one day when I move out of that house, I'll
find some gold,
dumpsters.
right? Yeah.
House with no closets and no storage. It's piles everywhere.
Yeah, well, people who have storage units, you know, and they're paying money to hold on to that stuff.
I think storage units are crazy. I mean. If it's really short term, I can understand.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, you have to leave your house. You want to hold on to your furniture for a couple months before you move into your new place or something. Sure, but I mean, they're not that cheap storage units. And by the time, you know, if you have a storage unit for like 5 years, you could probably buy 3/4 of what's in there again if you wanted.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I guess it depends on what all you're doing, or you know, what the purpose of it is. One of the owners here, Chris, he's he's like into toys and Magic the Gathering and stuff like that.
yeah.
And he was at one point he had told me that because he's got storage units full of stuff, and I see on his Instagram stories he's always cleaning that stuff out. So at least he's not like just like putting stuff in. He gets rid of it pretty regularly, but that's like his life. This is like what he does. It's not just like a side thing. This is like
Right.
He a couple of years ago he was like should start buying Lego sets because their value goes up faster than gold. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I bought this Lego set a year ago and now it's worth like $500. I'm like, Jesus Christ, start buying Legos.
They're building a big Lego amusement park.
Oh, really?
Up in
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
Goshen,
A
I think is
Tuxedo
where
or
it is.
something like that.
Yeah,
Somewhere
I think
around
it's
there.
in Goshen.
Yeah.
It's about about an hour north of here. For anyone who's not from this area, it's
I'm
about
gonna
an
take my
hour
kid
north
up there. Fuck, he loves Legos.
Yeah, I'm sure it's big. I think they have other Lego amusement parks in other places.
Yeah, I mean, the Legos are big right now for some
Yeah.
reason. They had the movies, and
Yeah.
my kid loves them. And that's one toy that I make him earn them, but when he wants to buy a toy, if he wants to buy a Lego, I'm kind of more supportive than if he just wants to buy some sort of action figure because you can reuse it and it's fun. I like doing it.
A little more, yeah. Hey, listen, if any Lego designers are out there, you got to make right angle Lego pieces. I don't know if they make those now, but when I was a kid, that's what I always thought I would want. I can't get them into different angles, and I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. If
They probably make it now, but I haven't had a Lego set in a long time.
Yeah, I got plenty of Legos at home that I step on all the time. It's
Yeah, they're ankle breakers. So how did you get into hardcore and punk?
That's God, man, that goes back. I guess I started getting into what quote unquote alternative music when I was in middle school. Grunge was sort of still big back then. Nirvana's like classic rock now. You hear about that shit?
I don't know. You know what? To me, I never understood the appeal of Nirvana, and I mean that's fine. There's tons of bands I don't like. That doesn't mean,
right.
That doesn't mean I can't appreciate them. But to think of Nirvana as something groundbreaking and revolutionary that a lot of people
They were essentially
seem to think
like a
them-
punk band with a different sound, sort of.
I always thought of them as kind of almost like a folk rock band. A lot of their a lot
could
of their
see that,
stuff
yeah.
is really folky to me. It sounds very folk influenced, and yeah, I mean, they got some rockers too. But I mean, I just don't see it with them. I
Yeah.
don't see what's so revolutionary. But listen, I mean, they were huge.
It was
You
huge
can't
back
deny that.
then,
They
and-
were monsters.
So I listened to stuff like Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots
Mhm.
and just shit like that. And then just started hanging out with a kid who was like really into Nirvana, and his brother was like a little bit older, and his brother was like into like Sex Pistols and Ramones and shit like that. So around 8th grade, 9th grade, started getting exposed to that stuff. That kind of led to get into that was actually right at that point where punk started going a little bit mainstream, like there was Green Day and
Sure.
things like that. I never was like a huge fan of Green Day. We listened to it a little bit back in the day, but getting into like Sex Pistols and stuff like that kind of opened the door to more, I guess, what you would call like skate punk or like melodic hardcore now. Like, so I listened to a lot of that stuff when I was like really fresh into high school. No Effects and
Sure.
a lot of those West Coast bands, Strung Out, Good Riddance, just like more melodic hardcore, I guess.
Yeah.
From there, ska started getting popular, and I hated that shit. I mean, like I'll just say it. I never liked ska. My brother got into ska. I was just like, this is just like hokey, like polka music. It's like, it's almost like too happy and too like jokey, like I just didn't relate to it. So, listening to like a lot of that skate punk type of stuff, and along with that came sort of more aggressive hardcore. I started getting into like stuff that I think kind of transcended those type of genres a little bit. There was a band called Ignite that I was really into.
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah, they're still around.
Yeah, so stuff like that, and then I got started hanging out with like when I was in high school, I hung out with like kind of like the sort of punky kids and skater kids, and we were in like skate punk bands and stuff like that. And after high school, kind of like grew apart from those people, and then the kids I started hanging out with were more into like kind of youth crew hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never really been into drinking or doing drugs, so like kind of that went hand in hand with being straight edge. And before straight edge was like a generic term for people who didn't just didn't do drugs or drink. Like it was actually being straight edge was part of being part of a community and stuff like that. So we listened to a lot of straight edge stuff, more like youth crew type of hardcore bands that like come and go. And I went to a lot of hardcore shows in Connecticut and in New York and stuff like that. And from there, I was listening to that, and I was in tandem to that. I was also listening to like a lot of, like we discussed earlier, like a lot of emo stuff.
Yep.
So from there, it kind of branched into like some other sort of, a little bit of everything. As I got older, my tastes kind of like didn't get refined. They sort of branched out. Like, so nowadays it's just, I related to like a lot of other stuff. Like, I listen to like a lot of dad rock now, like fucking Bruce Springsteen and Paul Simon and shit like that. Like I listened to a lot of that stuff growing up too, but now it's like, I listen to it and I can like, just want to mellow out and listen to that shit. But also, a little bit of indie rock here and there, and like, very, very little hip hop. I was never really that into hip hop. A little bit of Wu-Tang and, so like basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're part of a music scene like hardcore and punk, you kind of just listen to that stuff, and it's almost like looked down upon when you listen to other stuff. If I want to listen to like John Cougar Mellencamp, it's like, oh, you're not fucking into punk. It's like, it's very judgy and very, kind of like, there was a lot of rules to punk rock, which didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as I got older and just kind of wasn't part of a scene anymore, just, I listened to everything. I listened to a little bit of metal. I listened to some, I listen to fucking pop dance music once in a while here. You could be here in the shop and I'll be listening to fucking like Kesha or fucking Katy Perry or something. It's like, why not? Like, we just listen to all sorts of different shit. Like, sometimes I'm in the mood for this, sometimes I'm in the mood for that. I will just say that some of the shit I don't really like is, I'm not really into like a lot of the SoundCloud stuff. It's just like maybe a generational thing. Like these rappers, it's like now they're calling it like emo rap or something, right? Just because it's like these rich white kids with face tattoos who fucking like just like complain about wanting to kill themselves the whole time. I can't relate to it anymore. Like, I'm beyond that. Like, maybe if I was an angsty 15-year-old, I could be like, yeah, man, life sucks. And, like.
Were you an angsty 15-year-old? I mean, is that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that seems to be the common route for guys getting into punk and hardcore.
I mean, I was an angsty 25-year-old.
Were you like disenfranchised when you were.
When I was younger, I just like, being a kid, you just like, I wasn't a popular kid and I didn't fit in at school. And so like, you just kind of relate to the other kids who were like that. Yeah. So that's one reason I got into punk and hardcore. But then as you get more into that punk and hardcore scene, it's like a microcosm of like high school in general or whatever, So there's the popular kids in hardcore and punk. Sure. And like, there's, I was still the nerdy punk kid, like the nerdy nerd. Like, it was just like, so I had a lot of
trying to get out of that boat. You wound up in kind of in the same boat.
It was the same boat, but at least I had like kids that like I didn't give a fuck about the same stuff as kids in high school. I didn't really care about sports. I didn't really care about like, drinking and stuff like that. So I just kind of hung out with the kids I related to. I don't know, like it was a way to relate to other kids who were in the same boat. And, we were all kind of like, none of us were like I said, like we were talking about earlier, we live in a very wealthy area here, and me and all my friends, we didn't have money, so we just kind of hung out with each other. It's like more just another way to relate to people. And I was I an angry kid? Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like, I guess I was angry and angsty, but I was like kind of just more like trying to find my place, I guess. Like.
I think that's a really common thread among people that get into hardcore and punk and just kind of more aggressive music.
Sure, yeah.
Something you feel about yourself that doesn't kind of mesh up with the kids you go to school with or the kids you work with or
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely an outcast for sure. I was socially awkward and I still am, but I can fake it pretty well nowadays.
Fake it till you make it, right?
But it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, I'm not trying to make friends. I'm just trying to be a human,
When you're older, priorities are not the same. I mean, when you're in high school.
Yeah, it's that very social time of life.
Yeah, no matter what anyone says or this or that, I mean, you want to fit in to something. Even if you want to be yourself, maybe you don't want to fit into this clique or that clique or that crew. But, I mean, everyone wants to you kind of have to develop who you are and represent yourself, but you want it to. No one wants to be ostracized at that age. You don't want to feel like you're
sure.
the outsider
Sure.
looking in, and I think a lot of kids that are get into hardcore and get into punk, they feel that way. They feel like, hey, I'm kind of on the outside looking in at everyone, and
well, it's cool to find other kids that can relate to that,
Right.
and do that, and then like because of like the music scene that's involved with that, then you can relate to kids on a grander scale. In other words, like you're not just like hanging out with 3 kids from your town.
right.
You're going to shows and you get to hang out with 100 kids from all over
Yeah,
the
you
county or whatever that all can kind of relate.
Yeah,
But
you get to
within
meet
that,
similar people.
yeah, within that, there still was that sort of like popularity contest, and
Sure.
like the kids who were in the cool bands, they kind of like they got to play at CBGBs when I just played at like the Greenwich Recreation Center or whatever. Like it was different, like, but you kind of I've grown out of. I was talking to my friend Dan Kelly, who's actually he's actually a singer in a couple of metal bands and stuff. He's really a good friend of mine, and we get a little caffeinated and we talk about some life shit. And you're talking about like one time about how just like not interested in people's perception of me anymore. Like in high school, it was you're so interested in the perception, like, oh, everybody's looking at me. What are they thinking about me? Like, this is why I've always got to like have this sort of like vibe to myself. And like nowadays, it's like I don't give a fuck. Like I've got a handful of good friends, and like I get to work at a cool job with cool people, and like I don't need to like go places and like have people like be concerned about what people think about me. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me anymore. So it's kind of nice, like as I get older, like you see yourself kind of being more comfortable with yourself because you've been around yourself so much.
Sure.
Where you're just kind of like, all right, this is just the way it is. It's not going to change now.
Yeah.
Been on this earth 40 years. It's not going to.
Yeah. Well, I think as you get older, you obviously get life experience, but you get like an ability to introspect. Not everyone gets it, but to kind of look at yourself in a way that you can't look at yourself when you're like 17 or 21,
right, yeah.
and you're living more on testosterone and hanging out than
Yeah, for sure.
and
like
obviously your priorities change as you get older. You see, you're married, you have a kid. I live with my girlfriend. I have a dog, and what's important isn't as much going out every night as much as possible and hanging out as much as possible. And of course, I still enjoy hanging out with friends of mine. I think everyone does, but you don't have to do it ad nauseum. I mean, once in a while is enough.
You get that. I think a lot of people, they have that kind of fear of missing out, and so they kind of want to be everywhere. And it's like, I mean, I'll use this as an example, but for instance, like, if there's a calendar of like several bike races, and I'd love to do all of them, but I can't make all of them because I've got prior engagements. And then when 10 years ago when I was really into racing, I'd be so upset that I can't get to this bike race because I have to work or I have this thing. And like nowadays, it's more just like, there'll be another one.
Right.
Or like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go there. I'm not gonna win the race. Like I'm just gonna go and have fun. Like, so I'll go out for an hour early in the morning, and it's the same difference. It's like you get to this realization where it's like you're not really missing out on anything. It's like there'll be other experiences, and I think that people get just like sort of caught up in that shit, especially nowadays with social media and everybody's presenting their best life. It's not actually their best life, but it's just like a presentation. Like all these fucking Instagram models that are like all kind of like naked on the internet. Like, yeah, sure, they're pretty girls, but they're also human. I'm sure that like, when they're not like sticking their butt out and sucking their belly, and they're not like, like you can, you can. It's all mirage. Like you can kind of present whatever the fuck you want.
There was a thing maybe 2 years ago I saw on I don't remember where it was, somewhere online I saw it, and they had about 40 girls, I think, who were all porn chicks, and they had before and after pictures.
Oh, right.
Of all of them, like what they look like, what they look like normal, what they look like no makeup, what they look like when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah. They're just like normal girls, right?
And then what they look like when they're all made up. And some of them, it was just like any sampling of people. Some of them were pretty either way. Some of them were kind of ugly. And
you can transform
with,
yourself.
with tons and tons of makeup on.
Yep.
And I guess the skill to do that makeup. I mean, some of these girls that sort of normally you're like, and then you see them after, like, wow, these girls are beautiful.
Like, holy shit, right? Yeah.
And kind of like that, I think, like what you're talking about, like when you put this false image when everything's cleaned up and you have filters on and
but that's not even like
people only see a
necessarily
snapshot.
Like
you only see
problem.
a snapshot of the whole everything.
But that's not even necessarily the problem. The problem isn't like, if you want to do that and feel good about yourself, that's awesome. Like, yeah, do it. You know, like if you want to like if I want to like take if I want to like buy a Ferrari and wax it and take a picture in front of it and show everybody that I've got a Ferrari, like, all right, cool, good for you. But it's the people who see that and they think that they have to aspire to be like that. Like, I mean, you don't know what it took to get to that, or necessarily that person's actually happy, you know? Like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I wanted to be so, like, once I got to be a competent tattooer and I wanted to be like a well-known tattooer or just kind of like accomplish something in tattooing, it was like kind of my goal to get to a certain level. I just thought it would all be like a certain way. And then like you get to it and you're just like, it's just the same as it was before. I still have to bust my ass drawing. I still have to tattoo. I still have to, you know, I mean, you saw me in here earlier mopping the fucking floor. Things don't change.
I came in here before and I was setting up all of this too much amount of equipment. And Sam was here cleaning up, just like mopping and sweeping and cleaning.
Yeah, my fucking mom don't live here. You know, gotta do it. So
yeah, man.
Like, you know, there's not like, yeah, sure, I get to, you know, like do an Instagram story where we're playing pranks on people and we're getting wacky, but you know, no, it's not like that all the time. Yeah, it's, you know, there's work to be done.
Yeah, you only see one picture or one, you know, 15-second story on Instagram of something. You don't see the whole. It made me think. I'm a bad sufferer of anxiety.
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes more than
others. You live in New York, you have to be.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like everyone is, and you know, you see people and everyone. When you see everyone walking around, everyone seems like they're doing good, and there's no problems, and there's no this.
Most of them have a mask
and
on,
I'm like,
right?
I'm sitting here and I can't even do anything for you know, a month or 6 months. I'm like, you know, debilitated from it. So I'm like, you don't know what's going on with them. You don't know what happens when they go home. You don't know what they're thinking right then. You just, you know, you see someone walking on the street and it looks like everything's hunky dory and everything's perfect, but you really don't know. And the same thing, you see someone on Instagram standing in front of, you know, maybe their Lamborghini, maybe someone else's.
Sure, right, exactly.
You don't know what happens when they walk away. It's almost like how like female models, how they all get airbrushed and this and that, and then that these young girls can't realistically aspire to look like that because they don't even look like that really.
Right. Yeah, it's all show for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Crazy.
But that's how people portray themselves. I mean, nobody wants to see someone boring, and that's I try to keep my personal life very like separated from my tattooing. So like on my Instagram, I show, it's all about art more or less, and then sometimes I'll show like a fucking picture of me riding a bike or whatever, you know, just like once in a while. But I have a separate Instagram and a lot of people do. I have a separate Instagram about you know, my kid and going on bike rides and doing other shit. And it's like, I don't post that shit because I don't think anybody's interested in it personally. Like, why would it? Like, I don't lead like some fantastic life. It's a pretty normal life, and I like it, but it's not, you know, whatever. And then like if you do want to see it, well, like here's another one, but you're not going to see me like partying or like you know, hanging out with tap models or fucking, but you know, like whatever.
I hope for our sake, sitting here doing this, I hope someone's interested.
Yeah, right. But you know, it's almost like it's just feeding the ego, you know, just kind of like showing people your false life.
Think they're showing a false life, or you think you're just seeing,
or maybe like the tidbits
selected.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Maybe it's not false,
like,
but it's
my life is as boring as could be, and I once in a while I post something on Instagram.
Sure.
But I'm not like trying to post pictures where it looks like I'm, you know, balling over the top. I'm just,
right.
You know, I post my dog sometimes. I go to a carnival. I post a picture. I mean, I try to look, but you know, it's.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to
just
post a picture of you like cooking eggs or anything. Like,
right.
you know, like.
I can just, post a picture of me sitting there on the couch watching TV, which is the majority of just snapshots of someone's life you don't really get. But you know, I like, for me, for the people I follow, like on Instagram, whether it's, I mean, if it's people I know personally, I already know them personally. But if it's someone, if it's a tattooer or whatever, a musician or if it's someone that sometimes we as people kind of maybe tend to separate from, you know, I'm a person, but they're
a celebrity or influencer.
Seeing once in a while, seeing just more human pictures of them, it makes you feel like maybe there's not a connection, but well, maybe a connection in the way that they're just like a person also.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to not like a connection like I'm going to show up outside your house if I follow you on Instagram and you post a picture of you know, yourself in a pool one day or something.
Well, I mean, I like seeing stuff like that. You know, and when my friends or tattooers I follow that are like, you know, it's not always tattoo based, but you know, like sometimes. You know, like even like Matt Driscoll post a picture of himself fishing or whatever. Right. It's like, it's cool to see that, you know, like he's got other interests. He's not just about art, and it shows that he is a human, and, you know, but it's cool because it's just like, you know, it'll just be a picture of him fishing. It's not him in a fucking, you know, huge bass boat with like, you know, like it's not, there's nothing artificial about it. I feel like, you know, like there's nothing staged about it, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think posting pictures like that, and part of the idea of why I'm trying to do this podcast is to see people in a more human light. Like you said, I'm not only, or you know, you or Matt Driscoll or whoever is not. I'm not only a tattooer. I have a life besides that, and it just makes it seem more human.
It's less one dimensional for sure.
Yeah, and I think some people go too far. I mean, I follow a lot of people that, like, I follow a lot of tattooers that post way more pictures of their personal life than they do of tattoos, and that's maybe too far the other way. It's
right. Well, if you're going to do that, then, I mean, if people are following you because of your tattoos, that's kind of like, that's why I started a personal account.
Yeah, right.
Like,
and I think that's
you know, it's open.
Idea,
it's not, you know, it's not private. You want to see what I'm doing? Go ahead. I got nothing to hide. It's just, I don't know that you're going to be interested in it.
Right. I think it's a good idea to separate that, because I'm somewhat interested in what people I follow are doing, but I'm not, I don't need like the play-by-play of their life. I don't know you. You know, like I said, I want you to seem human, but I don't need I don't know you personally. I don't need to know every single thing.
Like I don't need to know that it's your kid's birthday. Good for them, you know, that type of shit. Like,
right.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. Like, it's
the occasional.
It's cool to see human moments, but it's like if all you're seeing is human moments, then it's just like kind of bland or.
Yeah, it's too much. Like if all I'm seeing is human moments, I could just follow anyone.
Right. You can just look in the mirror.
Yeah. Well, no, you know, I mean, like, if I'm following someone specifically because they're a tattoo, or specifically because they're, you know, in a band I like, or I'm following a band I like, or if I'm following you mostly for that reason, not to see if I'm just seeing your personal life all the time and I don't know you personally, you might as well be anything. It's like,
sure, yeah.
You know, like when they do these reality shows, they have to do stuff so you're invested in the people that you're watching, because if if you just picked 6 people and put them in a room and had them sitting there talking, like, who the hell wants to see that? Because it's just like a bunch of strangers talking about nothing, you know. So,
Are you watching this season of Ink Master?
I am.
Yeah, I know it's like Battle of the Sexes or something like that.
Yeah, Battle of the Sexes.
Oh yeah, it's a weird. I mean, I sort of follow the result of it, I guess. Like, I know. I mean, I'll hear about who becomes Ink Master or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't watch, because I mean, I watched the first 2 seasons when they came out, and it's just like it was like cool because I was like excited, and I had more or less just started tattooing at that point. But like now it's kind of just like I see this shit every day. I don't need to watch it on TV. You know?
For sure. I think also, I mean, when it came out, it was a different time and culture. I mean, tattooing was still still
pretty new, yeah. Or not new. No, I mean, not new, but like on TV it was new.
Yeah,
it was
on TV
new
it was
to the masses.
new, and it was still much more underground. I mean, when Ink Master season 1 and 2 came out, you didn't see the amount of people walking around with tattoos, especially with big tattoos.
I think it opened it up a little bit.
Yeah.
People are more informed. You know, they come in. I can say from a tattooer's standpoint that like people come in and they're a little bit more informed. Some of them are a little annoying about it. Like, oh, what needle are you using? It's like, I'm using whatever needle I need to get the job done. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, shows like like Ink Master and Best Ink, which was on
Yeah,
with Joe
yeah.
Capobianco hosting, and
I liked that one better, honestly. I felt like it
did
was a
too.
little less about drama.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, and New York Ink and Miami Ink and L.A. Ink. I mean, that's put tattooing in much more of a public eye than it put it in a public eye in a different eye than it ever was before. It wasn't like, you know, a bunch of bikers in a movie with covered in tattoos or something. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like, you know, people that were much more three-dimensional. Even, you know, the reality TV is suspect from the get-go. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it definitely cast it more into the public eye in a different light than.
Yeah, made it more acceptable, made it seem less scary, but also like it gave some people some unrealistic expectations about tattoos and stuff,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I just kind of ignore it. I mean, I don't hate it or anything. They've asked me to be on the show a bunch of times. I've kind of declined. I've even done the interview, and it was told more or less that I would probably be on the show, but it just wasn't right for me, and I don't want to be away from my family for however long the taping is.
6 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
I feel like it's the same double-edged sword as someone into hardcore and even just metal and punk and all this stuff that I've been kind of going through for a long time. Like when I was in high school, which is before Nirvana, you know, I was into what I'm into, and kids would always tell me, "Oh, you listen to that Kill Your Mother music," and that kind of stuff. And I say, no, that's not what it's, you know. But you know, I'm not like,
oh, they don't get it. They just hear the aggression. And
right. Not like I'm gonna say, well, you know, and metal at that time was, you know, yeah, Slayer talking about killing, you know. I mean, there was certainly some stuff. There was some concentration on death and the morbid and whatever.
Sure,
but
that's
not my personal thing. But and then, you know, Nirvana broke and
it became more popular to kind of listen to aggressive music, right?
Yeah, to listen to heavier music. And I mean, even
a lot of stuff went pretty mainstream, you know, like Rage Against the Machine. And
yeah,
wasn't that guy in like a hardcore band?
Exactly.
Inside Out or something?
Yeah, he was Inside Out from
Out,
California. Because there was an Inside Out from New York too, but he was an Inside Out from California, and he was also in a band called Hard Stance.
Okay.
And then once Green Day broke, forget it. All these guys talking, punk.
Right.
I'm like, well, I've been saying this for years, and everyone thought I was an idiot. And now this is, you know, every kid going to the mall goes to Hot Topic and what's never had
it's
purple hair or anything. But I
well,
mean, you know,
no, I know, but
like
it's one of those like kind of points of like kind of it's a little sore spot for me because like, you know, when I was growing up, and it's probably similar for you, you know, like. You know, being into punk in the early to mid '90s and all that type of shit, you know, you were labeled a freak.
Right,
absolutely.
absolutely.
You were the freak. You were called freak all day long in high school. But nowadays, like, you know, everybody's got fucking rainbow hair and, you know, wears, you know, all black and, you know, like even like the hip hop artists guys are wearing Misfits shirts. And it's just like, dude, I used to get so much fucking shit for that, and you guys are like, it's mainstream now. Like, name me one of the fucking songs, you know? Like it just fucking...
Right. Yeah. It's tough because it's hard to straddle that line between I want to be elitist and keep it all for myself. And it's,
sure, and then like sharing it with everybody.
And between saying, well, I don't want people to think I'm a freak or I'm a weirdo because I'm into this. Like, I want them to accept me but not like what I like.
Sure,
it's hard. I mean, that's hard. I think that's a struggle that's been going on for years for a lot of people.
Oh, I think, yeah, for sure.
But believe me, when I hear kids nowadays like, "Oh, I'm into punk," it's like it.
Yeah, I know. It's like there's this label for like whiny indie kids like playing guitars, and they call it pop punk, but it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
not pop punk.
You know, even if it was, I mean, there's a difference between, I guess, talking the talk and walking the walk.
Yeah,
and,
sure, for sure, yeah.
Guys that have been into it for a long time, you know.
The world is different though, man, because it's like, you know,
it's very different with the internet.
Like
so
the whole DIY thing and getting, you know, like getting things out there. It's very different now with, you know, like I think you fill out a form or something and you can get on Spotify and then anybody in the world can hear you. And you know, versus like back then you were just making tapes and handing out, you know, and then it turned out you could burn CDs and.
Yeah, you know what? That's true, and I mean, I know sometimes you hear oh, when I was young, when I got into it, you had to go search for it. You had to,
Oh yeah.
you couldn't just get online. I mean, I remember when I first started being able to drive to shows, I would get a flyer to a show, and you get a flyer to like somewhere in some town in New Jersey you never heard of.
Sure, yeah.
There's no no Google Maps and no Garmin's
Right.
and whatever, and you gotta some kid's phone number is on a flyer. You call them up.
Call them for directions.
They call them up for directions, and the mother answers or something, and you're like, hey, I'm calling about such and such show, and they're like, oh yeah, that's Ricky's thing he's doing, or so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, can you tell me how to get there? Where are you coming from? New York. Nah, I really don't know. It's like, oh my God. You drive everywhere to map in the car, and
Right. Try to find it and figure it. Yeah.
but I always try to understand times change, and I don't want to be that guy sitting around like, when I was a kid, because I know things were different. Because I know when I was first getting into that kind of stuff, there was guys that were around for longer than me that were saying the same thing.
But I think that having everything at your disposal on your fingertips with a phone, it's just like, I think maybe some of the adventure's gone.
I think so too. I think you're right, but I think one of the biggest differences that's probably not related to technology is that when I was first getting into that stuff, even the hardcore stuff mostly and crossover thrash stuff and this and that was not as available in like the local record store.
Right.
But there was stuff that you that was like Metallica and bands like that, and Megadeth, and you could get that stuff in a store in the mall. Just where the other kids who weren't into it got
Yeah.
whatever they got, Brian Adams and what there was no interest in it also.
Sure, yeah.
And that's something I think that's different today. I think kids nowadays are much more, even if they don't like it, even if it's not their favorite thing, they're much more open to kind of cross.
I wonder why that is. I wonder if
expanding.
it's kind of like a similar reason why people are not as scared of tattoos, for instance.
It might just be.
It's just like the exposure.
Yeah.
Was the exposure there more so you can say like, oh, it's not as scary as it seems, and we can be a part of this. It's not just like some satanic cult,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just a bunch of guys killing puppies in the woods or
Yeah,
something.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Yeah, it might just because there's wider access to everything, and it's just easier for kids to hear more different stuff. And
That could
it's,
be. Or, maybe it's snowballed, more of their friends do it or more of their friends are into it.
When I was,
When
I was in high school, it was it's probably not like this in the whole everywhere, but everything was very regimented. These kids were like the jocks and the preppy kids, and these kids were the.
Oh yeah, it's less like that now. I think. I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Very less. I don't go to high school, but I have younger kids in my neighborhood that I see, and some of them are friends with the parents and blah blah. And I get some input on it, and it seems to really not be like that at all. Just
Well, I don't know much about it because my kid's only 5, so he's just starting kindergarten this fall.
Oh,
And thanks. Yeah, I don't have that daycare bill anymore.
Yeah.
But it seems like the schools are all nowadays just doing like just making like inclusion just like a part of everything. So it's like like everybody can do everything. Like everybody's special. Everybody wins an award. Like it's
that real millennial.
I hate to like say that it sucks, but it kind of does because like I had to grow up where it's like you didn't get celebrated unless you did something special.
Right.
So like why celebrate you if you're just we're just celebrating mediocrity, and it's like, well then where do these kids get any type of motivation to do anything special? Where do they get the motivation to try harder, to really put an effort in?
Yeah.
They don't, because they're gonna get like like, oh no, we don't pick, we don't like, everybody gets the same amount of attention. It's like,
you get participation awards.
yeah, it's like, I get it. You're trying to bolster all these kids' self-esteem, but it's like some of them need a little wake-up call.
Well, I think I used to always say, well, when I get older, I won't say kids nowadays are different because they're probably not. That's what everyone says when they get older.
It's that you've gotten older.
But you know what? I feel like the world is very different than it was. And I'm sure it changes always from generation to generation over time. The internet and this kind of, world village connectivity and transfer of knowledge is something there's never been anything like that in the world.
But I think beyond that, it's more about
cell phones to carry it around with you and everything.
I think it's more about instant gratification nowadays. Like you know, kids nowadays, if they don't get what they want right away because they're so used to it, they just flip out. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that there was some of that growing up, and I'm sure like if my parents wouldn't buy me that, you know, candy bar when I wanted it, I flipped out. But like, it's just like, oh, you want to watch a TV show? Pull it up on Amazon. You know, you don't have to watch commercials. No, it's fine.
I always felt like the kids in maybe the generation slightly after me, like guys in your
Like
age,
maybe my age.
seemed much more like they had much more stuff than kids in my. You know, obviously.
Well, it's funny because I think just the same. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like,
And I always equated it to that baby boom. I equated it to their parents, to baby boomers. I figured by the time, at that time, by the time it was getting into the later 90s and earlier 2000s, that these baby boomers are now, they're all much older. They've been at their jobs for much longer. Now they're all making, you know,
Sure,
good money,
yeah.
and they got more money to spend on the kids. Because, I mean, when I was in high school, we had a parking lot, and there wasn't any trouble fitting all the cars of the people that drove into it because no one had cars. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't.
and
Well,
now it's
some
like you
people
got
had
to park
cars,
on the
but-
grass or
Yeah,
whatever.
now there's parked all over the place, and you know, and I hear from people I know that have kids, you know, they park here, and now they're expanding the parking lot, or they did a
Jesus.
couple years ago, and you know, it's like, and no one had cars when I
Yeah.
was a kid. Everyone's like, "Oh, can I get a ride?" Can everyone's begging everyone else
Sure.
for rides, and I'll give you $5 for a ride to here. And back then, gas was so cheap; nothing cost $5 in gas
Yeah,
to
right.
get anywhere, but unless they're
Like-
driving you to like Minnesota,
like
or
50
something.
cents a gallon.
Well, I wasn't not that old, but but I mean, I always equated it to that the income level of the parents went up and they were spending more on the kids, whereas opposed because I saw it in my family. I felt like my parents spent. I have a brother who's 7 years younger than me.
Oh wow, okay, that's
I always
a
felt
big
like
difference. Yeah.
like he was getting monetarily and materially more stuff, and I mean he was lucky because I was a bad kid and I broke my parents in for him, which but
Warmed
that's-
them up, huh?
That's probably true for every kid that has
Yeah.
older brothers.
Well, it's,
but-
I think that you're probably right about that. I mean, I know that in my time growing up, you know, again, I was one of 3 kids. I have a brother and a sister, and I was the youngest kid. But my parents didn't have money, and so I was lucky if I got, you know, one present for Christmas. And now, you know, I've got a kid, and every time we go to the store, he's like, "What? Can I buy something?" It's like, dude, we're like in like the Home Depot. What the fuck do you want to buy? Like, it's like he just expects to get something no matter what because his grandparents keep giving him stuff, and because like I keep buying him stuff for some, like, I don't know, because it's like I don't want him to go without like I did.
Right.
But at the same time, part of me inside's like, yo, you got to cut this shit out because it's like you're not doing him any favors. Like, you know, he's got to earn some character a little bit. You know,
He's
like
gotta-
suffering and wanting. You know, it's like if you get everything you want all the time, you're not going to know what it is to go without and to appreciate stuff. And I tell him that all the time, but it doesn't sink in. He's 5. He's too busy thinking about Pokemon.
Yeah, well, you know, they say youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Very true.
On that note, starting to run a little long. I ask you a couple of questions just
Sure.
off the top of my head that I thought about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
When I first started thinking about doing this. If you could get a tattoo from anyone, whether they're still tattooing or if they're not or whatever, like who would you get something?
There's a tattooer by the name of Tim Biedron. Was it Biedron? His Instagram is Only the Dead Are Smiling, and he's been like my favorite tattooer since before I started tattooing. And I think most of the people I've wanted to get tattooed by, I have gotten tattooed by, but he's just one of the elusive ones because he's in Chicago and he's kind of like a tattooer's tattooer. You know, like he doesn't have a lot of presence on the internet, and it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of scared to get tattooed by him because I'm just like, it'd be like staring God in the face. So, so that's, Tim Biedron, Pioneer Tattoo in Chicago. And maybe one day, I don't know. He doesn't do color anymore though. He does just black and gray. So I would still get tattooed by him, but I don't have any black and gray tattoos. I'd say, you know, if anybody, he's still the one that I would want to get tattooed by.
The brass ring, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe the name of a tattooer off the top of your head that should be more famous than they are?
Huh. Do I? Well, besides Tim Biedron, who we already just talked about. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like everybody everybody's like, I don't see. Here's the thing: is I don't know what fame is necessarily in tattooing anymore because I've met so many great people and like a lot of them have become my peers.
Okay.
You know, Kelly's one of my favorites, and she's a pretty big deal now. And
absolutely,
I would say that Curtis Burgess has always been a very big influence to me, and I think that he's maybe not like the hugest deal on social media, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think that he cares or he wants to be. So I think that maybe he's right where he wants to be, and that's awesome. I don't know, like that's a really tough one.
I don't know if I'm
yeah.
necessarily thinking about someone that is not ashamed it says they want to be, but someone
Like someone who's like
someone,
underrated or
yeah, like a diamond in the rough, like someone that maybe isn't well known or isn't well known on social media or is whatever that you're like, wow, this person should be in the big leagues and is.
I mean, that's really a tough one. I think, directly kind of relating to me, my coworker Joe Mumala, he's JPM Tattoos on Instagram, and he's just like a phenomenal black and gray tattooer. Works really hard at his craft, always trying to improve, and he's not very well known. I mean, he's booked out a year locally,
really?
So he's not. It's not that he's not well known locally. It's just I think in the big picture, it's hard for him to stand out because there are so many great black and gray tattooers. So I think that for some reason I feel like him and for his ability level and for as good as he is, that he really should be a bigger deal than he is on social media or Instagram or whatever. But it's popularity contest. Some of us are good at it, and some of us aren't. So
absolutely,
I would say that there's way more tattooers that that are out there that are big deals that maybe shouldn't be. I won't name them, but
I would agree. I sometimes see, like, I'm kind of with you, almost like I don't know exactly how to rate it. I kind of rate it by the amount of Instagram followers, and that's not
right.
not really an accurate.
It's just how much exposure that they've had,
right? But it's also kind of like by choice. So how much do they want to post? And it's also could boil down to how good are they at taking pictures. Yeah, I follow this guy from Canada, Saga Anderson.
Okay.
He's got Ink by Saga.
I think I've heard of him.
And I've seen some of his pictures, and I'm like, wow, these are really great. I mean, he was at.
Is he not very popular? Or?
I think he's pretty well known, but I mean, his pictures are the kind of things where I'm like, wow, I'd really like to see that in real life because I want to see that how it looks in real life as compared to the pictures because people use filters and blah blah blah, and
okay, right. It just almost feels like a little bit too far, like too good to be true, kind of.
Yeah, and he was at the Empire State Tattoo Convention, which is next week.
Sure, yeah.
Next week from when we're recording.
Is that
this.
The one in
Manhattan?
Oh, Manhattan. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I went there and I actually tracked down a bunch of artists that I followed to do that, to look at their work in real
person,
life.
Yeah.
Him, one of them, and Evan Olin and Phil Garcia and
those guys are heavy hitters.
Some of these guys that I'm like, these guys are really. I mean, on Instagram they're phenomenal, but it's we all know that not everyone's pictures are real. So I just want to see if their stuff measures up in real life, which it all does. But
usually it does.
For the guys, for those guys. But so I saw Saga Anderson there, and there was two people there that I guess were entered in one of the contests there, and they had pieces on him that I had seen from him that I had seen online that guy told me they'd done about a year ago. So it was cool. So I was able to see.
Oh, how it healed up and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And I was talking to him because he wasn't tattooing at the moment. I guess he'd finished for the day, and he was just waiting to go up with them for this contest.
For like the contest, yeah.
And he was telling me, he's like, I've taken classes. I think he said he took classes in photography, so he can take better pictures. And he said that's a big part of it.
It's a huge
not
part.
With the filters, not with filters or effects, but just
getting the right lighting and getting it to look like what it looks like in person.
Good angles, right?
Well, I think that's a big struggle for every tattooer. It's like they just like have if we studied up a little bit, we'd be able to find a better way to take pictures. But half the pictures I take of tattoos I don't want to post because there's just too much glare or this or that, or it doesn't look like how it looks in person. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's hard for a lot of people to get good pictures, especially because tattoos are not flat. Most of the time, you got some curves to it. It's hard to get
the angles. It just warps a bunch. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, about people's fame on Instagram. your fame on Instagram may be related to your camera ability, which doesn't really have anything to do with your tattooing ability.
Yeah.
So it's, even though that's, the followers on Instagram is what I kind of use to judge people, it's not really an accurate representation of tattooing skills or tattooing.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
But I mean, there's a lot of people who gain fame on Instagram simply because of the subject matters, and if it's like something that's popular right now, or a lot of pop culture tattoos, like people who focus on that, they can gain more fame on social media because it's relatable, and I try to stay away from that. I don't really like doing. I mean, it's not that I don't like doing. I'll do whatever comic character or cartoon character, and I like that. It's fun, but I don't want that to be my niche. I'd rather just do something that's a little bit more unique than that or different.
All right. Well, with that, let's cut it. I guess we want to.
Awesome. Yeah.
Want to do it for long enough that people learn something, but not too long that they're like
start rolling their eyes back or anything.
Never want to hear from these guys again. So right. So that's it. So that's this episode of Under Our Skin podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me out.
Hey, thanks, Sam, for being here. You have any shout outs you want to give, anything like that?
Well, thanks to my wife and kid for putting up with me, and to the shop, I guess, for letting me fly, because I'm a peacock. I got to fly. Shut up, Alexis. God, she keeps turning on.
Now, Alexis, it's bad time.
Yeah, right. Nah, thanks to anybody who gets tattooed by me, and just so everybody knows that I am not booked up forever. I'm only booked up a month out, so you can always just get in touch and let me know if you want to get something tattooed, and we'll set it up.
Cool. Well, yeah, Sam's here at Addicted to Ink in White Plains, New York. Wherever you're listening to this, if you're listening to it as a podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, I have links for Sam and for the shop and some of the people that we talked about in here. As I'm going back through everything, I'll link everyone up in the description so everyone can check out people that we talked about.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And we want people to have access to everyone, and especially if you want to get tattooed by Sam. So that's it. So please follow us on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And we're on Instagram and Twitter. I don't know if I'll ever check that one, but but Instagram I check out. But so that's it. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.